Han Li's Wuxia Adventures. Chapter 697, People from the Empire at dusk. Rays of sunlight were passing through the thick and dense forest of bamboo trees. At that moment, someone was sitting cross-legged on the ground. Lin Feng had his eyes closed and he was practicing cultivation. Behind Lin Feng, not so far away, was a beautiful woman. She was sitting on a bamboo rocking chair and was swinging slowly. She looked pure and holy with a resplendent smile on her face. Meng Qing's neck was filled with spring moon jade stones. Lin Feng had given them to her. Even though she didn't need so many, she was very happy to have them. Lin Feng was releasing a terrifying cold qi which had enveloped his body. His incredibly strong cosmos burning skill was burning around him. Surprisingly, a strong ice qi was still enveloping his body. Lin Feng moved his hands and a terrifying fire started burning and merging with the ice. Just like Lin Feng and Meng Qing had merged together when they had made love. Then, the ice slowly melted in that fire. After a long time, Lin Feng released a terrifying energy and absorbed all the fire. His qi had become stronger. Lin Feng opened his eyes and stood up. He turned around to look at Meng Qing and asked, "What's going on?" After having made love with Meng Qing, an ice pearl had appeared in his body. That ice pearl contained a terrifying ice energy. So he used it to practice cultivation. He could use it to transform his pure qi. It had increased his speed in condensing pure qi. When the pure qi couldn't become stronger than that, the ice pearl also become weaker. Lin Feng's body was very intriguing. Meng Qing smiled but did explain anything. Lin Feng didn't ask about it again, he just looked at her and said, "Let's go for a walk." "Alright, you have to see Xinyi," said Meng Qing. "When you weren't here, Xinyi came a few times to have fun with us. She misses you a lot and it seems she lost some weight too." Lin Feng smiled, he hadn't thought that Meng Qing would be so nice. She had seen Xinyi a few times and they had become close friends. If they were both good friends, Lin Feng would be happy. At the same time, in another corner of the imperial city, there was a huge group of people. The guards of the imperial city of Shuiyu were stupefied. They were just looking at those silhouettes riding terrifying, ferocious wild beasts. They all looked so scary that people shivered, some had even stumbled and almost fell when they saw those things. Very strong Xian-level beasts, thought some people when they saw those beasts getting closer and closer. Everybody in the imperial city was raising their heads and looking at that group of people. "What's going on?" thought the crowd, shivering. There were 10 terrifying Xian-level beasts blotting out the sky and covering up the earth. "We need to inform someone," thought the shaking crowd. "No need," said someone else. Immediately after, a strong wind blew over them that nearly knocked them all down. Those black silhouettes in the sky were becoming more and more distinct. They didn't need to inform anyone because everyone could see them already. A few people in black chongpaos suddenly rose up in the air and encircled the city. "We are the Imperial Dragon Guards. Who are you and why did you come to Shuiyu?" asked a person. That voice was incredible. The crowd was looking at that person who was talking. The Imperial Dragon Guards were cultivators of the Xian Qi layer, they already considered as extremely strong cultivators in Shuiyu. They had become a mysterious sphere of influence in the country, but at that moment the Imperial Dragon Guards were feeling inferior. Those people who had come were much stronger than them. They were extremely nervous. "Don't worry, we won't be here for a long time. I am Ruolan Shan from Dragon Mountain. The Emperor of Dragon Mountain ordered me to come and grant someone the title of ruler of Shuiyu," said Ruolan Shan slowly. Behind Ruolan Shan a group of beautiful women took out some baskets, in which there were tulip petals. They then threw them around and the petals flew off in the wind, accompanying Ruolan Shan's words. That group of extremely strong cultivators were from Dragon Mountain. They had been sent by the Emperor of Dragon Mountain. "Ruler of Shuiyu." The crowd at the bottom was astonished. "Ruler. Someone was going to become ruler of Shuiyu." "Can I ask you who is going to become ruler of Shuiyu?" asked the Imperial Dragon Guard. His chest was bouncing back and forth. Those people from Dragon Mountain hadn't come to cause troubles. Instead, they had come to grant somebody the title of ruler of Shuiyu. How incredible. The ruler of Shuiyu would then have the same power as the king of Shuiyu. A genius from Shuiyu who dazzled at the great competition of Shuiyu and had finished first. "It is an honor for our empire, therefore, he is going to become the ruler of Shuiyu," said Ruolan Shan smiling. The crowd was stunned. A genius from Shuiyu had finished first at the great competition of Shuiyu. They were all stunned. They had already thought that being the strongest person of Shuiyu and being able to participate at the great competition of Shuiyu was exceptional. They had even thought that finishing in the top 10 was incredible and an honor for their country. But finishing first was absolutely amazing. They couldn't believe it. Surprisingly, someone from Shuiyu had finished first at the competition. Who? The Crown Prince Duan Wudao, asked some people in the crowd. Their heads were spinning. There were 13 countries in Shuiyu and Shuiyu was such a tiny little country. Under the jurisdiction of an empire. Surprisingly, someone from their country had won and was the champion of the competition. How was that possible? They couldn't believe it. Chapter 698, Ruler. The tulip petals kept flying in the wind and an incredible quantity of petals had already began to pile on the ground of the city. The people from Dragon Mountain then stopped outside of the highest building of the Imperial Palace and landed on a huge field. People from the Imperial Palace who were in the distance looked solemn and respectful. Those people from Dragon Mountain looked imposing and domineering. They were all wondering what was happening when the people from Dragon Mountain had stopped. They mustn't be enemies who were going to attack. Tulip petals kept flying in the wind. "I am the ambassador from Dragon Mountain to Shuiyu. I am Ruolan Shan. The Emperor has sent us here to grant someone the title of ruler of Shuiyu. We would to inform the king of Shuiyu," said Ruolan Shan, looking at those people from the Imperial Palace. In a flash, a loud voice spread in the air that could be heard everywhere in the palace. People from Dragon Mountain had come to grant someone the title of ruler of Shuiyu. The people who were inside the Imperial Palace of Shuiyu were all astonished. Someone was going to become the ruler of Shuiyu. Of course, some people had already heard the news. The champion of the great competition of Shuiyu was going to become the ruler of Shuiyu. People were getting agitated in the Imperial Palace. Many were coming out and looking at those people outside on the field and in the air. At the same time, people from the Imperial City were also rushing over to the palace and gathering there. Many people had thought that Duan Wudao won the competition and was going to become the ruler of Shuiyu. They wanted to see that important event in the history of Shuiyu. Besides, the Crown Prince was extremely strong. With him Shuiyu would become an incredibly strong country. After a short while, two silhouettes appeared in the distance. Behind them was a group of people who all had spears in their hands. Their eyes were twinkling with sharp lights. Their qi was also extremely powerful. Duan Wuxia, the second prince. The crowd could recognize Duan Wuxia. Then, they also recognized the other person next to him. It was the king of Shuiyu. Ha! The crowd was a bit surprised when they saw a middle-aged man wearing a gray changpao. He didn't look like the king of Shuiyu. His skin was as white as that of a woman and he looked effeminate. It was as if they had never seen the king before. Was it really him? According to the rumors, the king of Shuiyu was always hiding and had never made inquiries about the country he reigned over. Duan Wudao and Duan Wuxia were in charge of managing the country. It seemed like this time, everything was true. However, in people's hearts the true king was still the one who had astonished the entire country 20 years before, Duan Renhuang. A short moment after, the middle-aged man in the grey changpao and Duan Wuxia arrived in front of Ruolan Shan. Ruolan Shan and the middle-aged man in grey clothes smiled back at each other respectfully. Ruolan Shan, ambassador from Dragon Mountain, you came from so far. I had to greet you in person in fear of being impolite. I came here to grant someone with the title of ruler of Shuiyu. Otherwise, I wouldn't have dared come and disturb the king, said Roland Shan politely. This time I had to ask for the king's audience. All right, said the king nodding. Who is going to become the ruler of Shuiyu? Doesn't he know the answer? Wondered the crowd looking back at the king of Shuiyu. He was the king, didn't he know the result of the great competition of Shuiyu? From his smile, he had to be Duan Renhuang. First, I would like to congratulate Shuiyu. You gave birth to two incredible geniuses who finished first and second at the great competition of Shuiyu. Dragon Mountain is proud of them, said Roland Shan. He then waved and many people took out some goods and put them in front of the king. Those are presents for Shuiyu, I hope you like them. Duan Wuya unpacked the presents as the crowd got over their surprise from before, when Roland Shan had said two geniuses from Shuiyu had finished both first and second at the great competition of Shuiyu. Duan Wudao was the champion. And who was the second one? Could it be the second high official Yu Tianming? But Yu Tianming wasn't strong enough to finish second at the competition. First, I would like to congratulate Duan Wudao for having finished second at the great competition of Shuiyu. He was astonishing, said Roland Shan. The crowd was stunned again. They were wrong, they had all thought that Duan Wudao had finished first. Duan Wudao had finished second, but who was stronger than him in Shuiyu? The crowd couldn't believe what they had just heard. Then, I would like to congratulate another incredible genius from Shuiyu. He is not even 20 yet and he astonished everybody up until the very end, and then he finished first. He is the very champion of the great competition of Shuiyu, he is extremely strong and he is the glory of our empire of Shuiyu. Dragon Mountain would like to grant him the title of ruler of Shuiyu and his name is Lin Feng, said Roland Shan. People thought that their brains were going to explode. They slowly remembered Lin Feng whose image appeared in their head again. Lin Feng. Lin Feng had won. They obviously all knew Lin Feng, everybody in Shuiyu knew him. They could still remember all the times he had shown his strength. However, the crowd had never thought that as young as he was, he would become the champion of the competition. They had never thought that he would become the most astonishing cultivator in Shuiyu. Duan Wudao had finished second, which meant that Lin Feng had defeated Duan Wudao. Lin Feng was really monstrously strong. Your Highness, do you know where Lin Feng is? Let's go and find him together, said Roland Shan smiling. The crowd was becoming clear-headed again. All right. Lin Feng must be in the lovesickness forest, let's go together, said the king. No need, said a voice. People looked in the direction where the voice had come from and saw a young man in the sky. He looked clean and outstanding. He looked more and more brilliant each time they saw him. His eyes were deep and profound. His chi had changed from before. Lin Feng had changed a lot, it seemed. Lin Feng had come out of the lovesickness forest because he wanted to go and see Duan Xinyi. He hadn't thought that he would run into Roland Shan. Lin Feng, very good, you're here, said Roland Shan smiling. Lin Feng, the emperor asked me to come. Now I would like to confer you the title of ruler of Shuiyu in front of everybody, including the king of Shuiyu. You now have the same power as the king of Shuiyu. Roland Shan then waved his hand and a group of people moved towards Lin Feng. Everybody was looking at him with respect. Lin Feng had a status which was as powerful as that of the king. Congratulations, Lin Feng, said the king smiling at Lin Feng. He looked free and unrestrained, it didn't seem to bother him to have someone with the same power as him in Shuiyu. Lin Feng nodded back at him, he didn't look scared or respectful, he wasn't a young man from the imperial palace. After Shengong, after having seen the cultivators of the Tian Qi layer from the East Sea Dragon Palace, the Nine Cloud Sword sect, the Jade Heaven imperial family in the necropolis, Lin Feng didn't feel anything particular facing the king of Shuiyu. Besides, he was now as powerful as the king. Lin Feng was the new ruler of Shuiyu along with the king. Thank you. Since the king is here, I would like to say that I would like to get married with Princess Xinyi, with whom I love. I hope that you will accept. Lin Feng had become the ruler of Shuiyu and was proposing a marriage alliance with the princess, asking the king for her hand in front of everybody else. The king and Lin Feng looked at each other. It seemed like some sharp qi was colliding in the air. Chapter 699, Acceptance. Everybody remained silent. They watched Lin Feng and the king stare down each other. They didn't know what to think. Back then, Lin Feng had astonished them under the moonlight of the Xiangjiang lake. Now, he was facing the king who was as powerful as him. He was now the ruler of Shuiyu. Duan Wuya was on the king's side. Back then he had said to Lin Feng that in order to get married with Duan Xianyi, he had to finish in the top 9. And then in the future, he had to defeat Duan Wu Dao. Only then he would accept. However, now Lin Feng had already accomplished all those things and had even finished first at the great competition of Shuiyu. He had come back to Shuiyu as a glorious hero and had become the ruler of Shuiyu. If Lin Feng wanted to get married with Duan Xianyi, who could refuse? Duan Wuya had no reason to do so either. Lin Feng hadn't even glanced at Duan Wuya. Since the beginning, he knew how Duan Wuya was and now he didn't care about him anymore. He had become the ruler of Shuiyu and Duan Wuya was the second prince. Lin Feng's status was higher than that of Duan Wuya, so did he need to look at him? Humph. At that moment, someone groaned coldly and a person in a grey Chong Pao appeared. That person was coldly staring at Lin Feng. It was Shi Huan, one of the Imperial Dragon Guards, and he was Shi Qiong's father. Lin Feng had already seen him in the past. He had tried to kill Lin Feng in the past, but Lin Feng was becoming stronger. You tiny little insect, do you think that you've become a phoenix? You are no match for Xianyi. She's a princess, said Shi Huan in an extremely cold way. He looked evil. Lin Feng had become the ruler of Shuiyu, how abominable. Lin Feng slowly turned around and looked at Shi Huan. His eyes were twinkling with sharp lights, as sharp as swords. Shi Huan had the feeling that he was being stabbed. What do you want? Shut your filthy mouth now. I am the ruler of Shuiyu now, how dare you gesticulate in front of me? Do you want to die? Said Lin Feng extremely aggressively. In a flash, he released a terrifying sword energy which enveloped Shi Huan's body. Shi Huan's face turned deathly pale, he was sweating cold beads and could barely breathe. How dare you, shouted Shi Huan furiously. He hadn't thought that Lin Feng would be so brutal and violent. Besides, he was realizing that Lin Feng was the champion of the great competition of Shuiyu and that he had become monstrously strong. In his memories, Lin Feng was still weak. Die! Lin Feng ignored him and shouted furiously. A terrifying die word appeared in the air, a terrifying sword energy emerged at the same time and lacerated the atmosphere. The sword energy then turned into a terrifying sword. Shi Qiong looked deathly pale, his face contained no blood anymore. Would Lin Feng kill him? Crrr, the massive amount of sword energy crashed onto his body. He was so much weaker than Lin Feng. Lin Feng could kill him from kilometers away. Could Shi Huan compete with him? Shi Huan couldn't even resist. Lin Feng didn't even need to move his hands to kill him. In a flash, Shi Huan was dead. The sword chi disappeared and Lin Feng moved back to his initial position. He looked calm and serene as if nothing had happened. The crowd was astonished and their hearts were pounding at full speed. Lin Feng had become so scary. Becoming the champion of the great competition of Shuiyu wasn't easy. Lin Feng had become 100 times stronger than before the competition. Lin Feng had become the ruler of Shuiyu. An officer of the Imperial Snow Dragon Guards couldn't rival with him anymore. Shi Huan had overestimated himself. Lin Feng considered as an insect, but he died with a breath of effort. The king and Duan Wuya looked emotionless. Shi Huan had died and they didn't care at all, in fact, they actually hadn't cared. They didn't control the Imperial Snow Dragon Guards. Duan Wuya had always dreamt of becoming their leader but had never managed to do so. Then the king of Shuiyu smiled at Lin Feng in a resplendent way and said, "Lin Feng, now you are the ruler of Shuiyu, you can of course marry Xinyi. Just choose a date for the wedding. Wuya will help organize everything. I hope that you will take care of Xinyi," said the king. The crowd was speechless. The king had accepted. Xinyi and Lin Feng were going to be married. Of course, if one person could get married with Duan Xinyi, it had to be Lin Feng. He was the champion of the great competition of Shuiyu, everybody knew him. And he was the ruler of Shuiyu. If Lin Feng couldn't get married with the princess, who could? The crowd thought that the king accepted only because of Lin Feng's new social status though, ruler of Shuiyu. They had the same power in the country now. In any case, the king hadn't thought about it too much, he immediately accepted Lin Feng's request. Shi Huan had died for nothing, he had just courted death and Lin Feng had helped him achieve his aim. "Thank you," said Lin Feng bowing in front of the king. The king would become Lin Feng's father-in-law, he had to be polite to him. "Hee, congratulations Lin Feng. You came back as a hero and you are now the ruler of Shuiyu. Now you will get married with a beautiful woman. Ruolan Shan will definitely come to the wedding for a few drinks," said Ruolan Shan smiling merrily. He had already seen how close Duan Xinyi and Lin Feng were. A girl as beautiful as the stars and a peerless genius. They were a perfect couple. "Thank you, I will happily welcome you to my wedding," said Lin Feng smiling at Ruolan Shan. "Alright, Lin Feng, Your Highness, my mission in Shuiyu is over. I have to go back to Dragon Mountain. I would like the king of Shuiyu to help me with one more thing though. Make a public announcement to declare Lin Feng's new title of ruler of Shuiyu," said Ruolan Shan. Everybody had to know about it. If the king did it himself then Ruolan Shan could be relieved. "No need to remind me of that, this is obvious. The entire country will know about it. At the same time, I will also prepare his wedding with my daughter. It will be a big ceremony," said the king calmly smiling. The crowd slightly nodded, the king didn't mind that Lin Feng had become the ruler of Shuiyu. Duan Wudao had finished second at the great competition of Shuiyu. Lin Feng had finished as the most outstanding cultivator of Shuiyu and of Shuiyu. Everybody had to know. "We talked too much, Your Highness, Lin Feng, I'm leaving," said Ruolan Shan waving. Immediately after, the people from Dragon Mountain all left. The tulip petals kept flying in the wind. After Ruolan Shan left, the king slowly turned and looked to Lin Feng while smiling. "Lin Feng, you are the ruler of Shuiyu now, the imperial palace is yours to share. Alright, Duan Wuya, and you can talk about the future now. You shouldn't need me anymore," said the king smiling, he then turned around and left. Duan Wuya looked at Lin Feng in a calm and serene way. He looked at Lin Feng with a smile on his face but people didn't know what he was thinking. "Lin Feng, I also would like to congratulate you. You are the champion of the great competition of Shuiyu and defeated my brother. You met all my requirements, think about a wedding date now," said Duan Wuya slowly and calmly. He even sounded a bit gentle or soft. It seemed like the problems which had arisen before the competition had never happened because he wasn't aggressive anymore. "I will talk to her and we will decide together," said Lin Feng nodding. He then jumped forwards and left. He didn't look at Duan Wuya anymore, it seemed like he didn't feel like talking to him. Duan Wuya looked at him with a resplendent smile on his face, but nobody knew how he really felt. People were also pensive around him but then the crowd dispersed. People didn't understand all those plots and intrigues happening in imperial families. Chapter 700, Public Announcement. Deep in a forest, Indiana, the Imperial Palace, opposite a waterfall, there was a beautiful woman next to a river. In front of her was a painting, it was a man's portrait. There were many colors and the style was refined and elegant. Water was flowing next to her, but all she was focusing on was the portrait she was painting. She was painting the man she loved. She was using her heart to paint. "Princess," said someone at that moment. She was surprised to hear someone interrupting her. Duan Xin stopped painting, her brush shook as she made some messy strokes. Duan Xin frowned and turned her head around. "Xiao Xin, why are you bothering me?" "Princess, I have some good news," said Xiao Xin with a resplendent smile on her face. "What news?" asked Duan Xin a bit surprised. She didn't like being disturbed while painting. What was Xiao Xin talking about? "Lin Feng is back. He just arrived and has proposed a marriage alliance," said Xiao Xin proudly. Duan Xin was so surprised that she dropped her painting brush. Lin Feng had come back and had asked her father for her hand. "Did he reply?" asked Duan Xin a bit anxious. "He did, and he accepted. Master Lin Feng defeated Duan Wudao at the great competition of Shuiyu and he finished first. He has now become the ruler of Shuiyu. That title was conferred to him by the Dragon Mountain Empire. He has came back a hero." Duan Xinye's heart was pounding furiously. Lin Feng had defeated Duan Wudao and was the champion of the great competition of Shuiyu. He had also become the ruler of Shuiyu. All of that was great news. Duan Xinye was speechless. "Where is Lin Feng?" asked Duan Xinye suddenly. She looked delighted. "I just heard the news, so I rushed over to tell you these things. I think he should arrive at any moment now," said Xiao Xin. Xiao Xin hadn't even finished talking when Duan Xinye was already running away. Her Chong Sam was fluttering in the wind. A silhouette appeared in front of her, making her stop. She was so happy to see that person. It was the man she had been painting so many times over. He had come back. And to her great surprise, her father had accepted their alliance. She smiled magnificently when she saw him. Lin Feng looked mature and mysterious. Duan Xinye lowered her head, her face had turned red. She wanted to control herself, but in the end tears appeared in her eyes and started flowing down her cheeks. Duan Xinye used her sleeves to wipe off the tears. She lowered her head and smiled. She wanted to make herself beautiful, but unfortunately she had started crying. Lin Feng slowly walked forwards and arrived next to Duan Xinye. She slowly raised her head, still wiping off her tears with her sleeves. "Silly girl, if you want to cry then just cry," said Lin Feng, stretching his hands out and hugging Duan Xinye. Then she was crying and crying. Duan Xinye tightly hugged Lin Feng. She felt warm. She was hugging him so tightly, it seemed like she was scared that he would leave her. Even though Lin Feng had finished as the champion of the great competition of Shuiyu, nobody had been able to predict what was going to happen there. Duan Xinye had been scared the whole time. She had thought that Lin Feng might die there. She had missed him so much, but she had also been terrified. She didn't like it when Lin Feng was away. She had had so many nightmares and had only been able to comfort herself alone and try to convince herself that Lin Feng would come back safe and sound. Now, he had come back and was right in front of her. Behind them was Xiao Xian smiling in a sweet way. She left them in silence without drawing their attention. She was happy for the princess. Lin Feng remained calm and serene. He didn't say anything. He just let her cry as much as she wanted. "Lin Feng, in the future you must bring me with you if you go somewhere," said Duan Xinye, staring at Lin Feng. She wanted to stay by Lin Feng's side all the time. She felt like she had a stone in her heart when Lin Feng gone. She felt like she was suffocating each time. Even if the situation was dangerous, she wanted to be with Lin Feng. "Okay," said Lin Feng, wiping off her tears with his hand. She looked so sad. How could Lin Feng refuse her request? She smiled again when she heard Lin Feng. She wiped off her tears with her sleeve again, looking so cute. "Let's go to the lovesickness forest." "All right," said Duan Xinye, nodding like a good girl. Immediately after, Lin Feng rose up in the air and flew towards the lovesickness forest. Nobody could stop them in the imperial palace. Lin Feng was the ruler of Shuiyu now, and the king had even agreed to it. Lin Feng was the most powerful man in the country. Shi Huan had died opposing him, who else dared to argue him? Lin Feng and Duan Xinyi had left very quickly. Lin Feng's life was usually calm and tranquil, but now it wasn't. He had come back to Shuiyu as a hero. He was the champion of the great competition of Shuiyu and had been conferred the title of ruler of Shuiyu. The king had announced that news himself to the people. Yangzhou city now had a certain reputation since Lin Feng had been entitled as the ruler of Shuiyu. It had become an even stronger city. Some extremely strong cultivators were now going to Yangzhou city to live there. Great opportunities would surely present themselves there in the future. There were so many extremely great skills and techniques, foreigners were traveling there more frequently. Yangzhou city was becoming a large city. Besides, at that moment in the sky above Yangzhou city, many silhouettes had appeared. They were riding ferocious wild beasts of the Xian level. Everybody in Yangzhou city was terrified and panic-stricken. Who were those strong cultivators and why had they come to Yangzhou city? Some golden papers were falling from the sky. The ferocious wild beasts were dropping those golden papers which floated in the wind. The sky of Yangzhou city was dazzling as they left. The crowd looked at the ferocious wild beasts leaving. A strong cultivator then rose up in the air and grabbed some of the golden papers. The Qi Xie Marquis has come back and he is now the champion of the great competition of Shuiyu. He has come back to Shuiyu as a hero. Now, he is the ruler of Shuiyu. Besides, he is going to get married with Princess Duan Xinyi. Many people were reading the words on those golden papers. Some strong cultivators were shaking. Lin Feng had won the great competition of Shuiyu. And had come back as a hero. Now he had been conferred the title of ruler of Shuiyu by the Emperor of Dragon Mountain. And was going to get married with the Princess Duan Xinyi. People were astonished. Some people slowly turned around and looked in the direction of the government building. Now, the leader of the city had become the ruler of the country. The castle which served as the government building would be a holy place in the future, another imperial palace. People in Yangzhou city were reading the golden papers one after the other. They were all shaking. The champion of the great competition of Shuiyu was their leader, Lin Feng. And on top of that he came from Yangzhou city himself. Lin Feng. The crowd looked so proud. Lin Feng. Some other people looked at the golden papers and sighed. How moving. Lin Feng from the Lin clan. This time, he hadn't astonished Yangzhou city but he the entire country and even the entire region. They were all very proud because Lin Feng came from Yangzhou city. Chapter 701, Getting Prepared for Revenge. Yu Menghe, Lin Hai, Meng Qing, Xinyi and Xiaoye were all waiting the lovesickness forest. They were all talking and sounding excited, everybody looked happy. Meng Qing didn't look cold like when she had first met Lin Feng. She was smiling, looking carefree. They were trying to pick a date for the wedding. Lin Feng was famous in Shuiyu and he was going to get married with an incredibly beautiful woman. Everybody was extremely happy. Lin Hai and Yu Menghe had the feeling that they were young again. In the past, they were sad and bitter as if they were aging. But now they were both happy every day together. What about half a month, suggested Yu Menghe. No, said Meng Qing shaking her head. Yu Menghe was surprised, why not? What do you suggest, Meng Qing? It's unlucky to have it on the day of the sun, said Meng Qing. Yu Menghe smiled and said, Meng Qing, we are cultivators so we don't believe in luck. You and Xinyi will both belong to Lin Feng, why couldn't it happen on the day of the sun? When Meng Qing was surprised when she heard Yu Menghe. She shook her head again and said, it is Xinyi's wedding, not mine. I am not going to participate. Meng Qing, said Duan Xinyi while holding Meng Qing's hand. She smiled in a pure and innocent way and said, "You knew Lin Feng before me. You were supposed to be his main wife. How could I get married to Lin Feng before you, and in front of your own eyes?" Everybody agrees. "We will get married with him at the same time." "But it's not the way you normally would do it," said Meng Qing, looking at Xinyi. Her heart was beating faster. She had never thought about getting married before. "Who needs to do it like everyone else?" said Lin Hai, shaking his head. He frowned and said, "In our world, there is only one principle: strength. Lin Feng is the champion of the great competition of Xueyu and the ruler of Xueyu. Nobody can offend him and nobody will dare criticize him." Lin Hai had experience and knew what the cultivation world was like. Lin Feng could get married with two incredibly beautiful women and nobody would say a thing. People simply considered him as the most dazzling young cultivator of Xueyu. Meng Qing looked at them, they were all looking at her. She knew that they all liked her, so she felt warm in her heart. "Does Lin Feng know about this too?" asked Meng Qing. Actually, she desired to become Lin Feng's wife more than anything in the world. "Meng Qing, you know Lin Feng. In the past, he didn't want me because he only wanted to be with you, but then he couldn't refuse me anymore," said Duan Xinyi, holding Meng Qing's hand even more firmly. She was still smiling in a pure and unadulterated way. Indeed, Lin Feng couldn't refuse Duan Xinyi. He. "Alright, Meng Qing, say yes. Many beautiful women like Lin Feng outside. If you refuse, it will be too late," said Xiaoya giggling. Meng Qing and Duan Xinyi both glared at Xiaoya. Xiaoya covered her mouth and ran away giggling. She had offended the girls. She added, "Don't worry about me, just call me if you need help." Lin Feng didn't know when the wedding was going to happen. His parents were taking care of it. At that moment, he was in the territory which formerly belonged to the holy courtyard of Xueyu, but now was the Yunhai sect. Relying on a perfect magic formation, the qi of the earth and the sky was extremely dense there. The Yunhai sect was expanding very quickly, especially since Lin Feng had been conferred the title of ruler of Xueyu. Many people were coming because they wanted to join the sect that Lin Feng ruled. According to the rumors, Lin Feng's strength was already terrifying. In the entire country of Xueyu, few people could fight against him. Duan Wudao couldn't even compete with him anymore. Soon, Lin Feng would break through to the Tian Qi layer, so everybody was enthusiastic about joining his sect. However, becoming a member of the Yunhai sect wasn't easy. One had to show that they were strong or had natural abilities. They also had to go through a test and show that they would be loyal. If it wasn't for this, the flood of people would all be accepted. People of the Yunhai sect were now strong cultivators, they were proud to be members of that sect. This time, Lin Feng was standing at the top of a tower in the middle of a cultivation field at the Yunhai sect. Behind him was Ren Qin Kuang, Lei Qin Tian and some other former officers. Now, they had all broken through to the Xian Qi layer and were standing behind Lin Feng. They had a feeling that there was a lot of pressure. They had never thought that Lin Feng would become so strong. There were many people on the cultivation field, they were all dazzling cultivators. They were looking back at Lin Feng, he was so young and so strong. He was their officer and he was standing at the top of that tower, they couldn't believe their eyes. Lin Feng was a miracle. They all progressed, "Not bad," said Lin Feng looking at that group of people. Now, the Yunhai sect was very strong. There wasn't such pressure to improve. "What about the troops you chose?" asked Lin Feng. "In 1 year, 30 will break through to the Xian Qi layer. In 2 years, 100 will break through to the Xian Qi layer," replied Ren Qin Kuang. Lin Feng shook his head and said, "Too slow, in 1 month I want all of them to break through to the Xian Qi layer. You also have to break through to the next cultivation layer. Only then can the Yunhai sect be ready for any trouble." 3 months is already too difficult, said Ren Qin Kuan, shaking his head. It was impossible to become so strong in such a short time. Mr. Hua and Mr. Qi will make some pills to help all of you. We cannot get so many pills in such a short time though. We need so many ingredients, said Ren Qingquan surprised. Had Lin Feng prepared everything already? Very quickly, we will have everything ready. Now, prepare some troops because we're going into battle, said Lin Feng, sounding like he had prepared everything. Battle? Ren Qingquan was surprised. What did Lin Feng want to do? Indeed, we're going to attack the Wanshou sect and the Yu clan. We will obtain some herbs, specks of grass and other goods which we could keep or exchange. Then the Wanshou sect and the Yu clan will become ours, said Lin Feng. Ren Qingquan and the others started shaking when they heard that. The Wanshou sect, the Yu clan, theirs. It seemed like Lin Feng was going to entirely transform Xueyu. How many people? Asked Ren Qingquan. Everybody, the most dazzling cultivators will then also have the opportunity to become stronger, said Lin Feng calmly. He wanted to do something incredible before his wedding anyway. In the past the Wanshou sect and the Yu clan had always wanted to kill him, they had schemed against him before the great competition of Xueyu. He survived only because Xiaoye and her grandfather had saved him. Lin Feng was ready to get his revenge now. The Wanshou sect and the Yu clan were going to be his stepping stones to make the Yunhai sect rise in the country. All right. Let's go, agreed Ren Qingquan. He then left to execute the orders. Uncle Feng, Lei Feng, go and help Mr. Qi and Mr. Hua, said Lin Feng to Feng Yuhan and Lei Qing Tian. The two of them then nodded and their silhouettes flickered. Lin Feng gazed into the distance, in the direction of the Wanshou sect and the Yu clan. His eyes looked as sharp as swords. After having gone back to Xueyu, Yu Lu Shui hadn't thought of taking the core disciples of the clan and leaving with them. He hadn't thought of trying to escape from Lin Feng. How could they escape? The two most incredible cultivators of the Yu clan had been killed by Lin Feng in the evil area during the great competition of Xueyu. How could Yu Lu Shui escape? There was no hope. He could only hope that someone would help him face Lin Feng. However, Lin Feng had come back to Xueyu as the champion of the competition and the new ruler of Xueyu. Who could oppose him? Boom boom boom. A terrifying energy spread in the air. The entire Yu clan was even more panic-stricken. Immediately after, the Yu clan was surrounded. Lin Feng had arrived on his winged tiger and he had landed on the palace where Yu Lu Shui was. Without emitting any sound, Lin Feng used his sword to crush the palace. This caused a few silhouettes to come out, including Yu Lu Shui. Head of the Yu clan. Lin Feng shouted at Yu Lu Shui. Yu Lu Shui was defeated, Lin Feng had come to kill him. He couldn't hide anymore. You threatened me many times, you tried to kill me many times. You spread words of unceasing hatred during the great competition of Xueyu. You wanted to kill me and now I am here, will you try? Said Lin Feng sounding arrogant. Yu Lu Shui was terrified. Could he kill Lin Feng? Since you're not attacking, I will attack, said Lin Feng indifferently. His infinite quantity of sword energy then emitted whistling sounds in the atmosphere and his sword began twinkling. There were only sword lights in the atmosphere. All the people of the Yu clan were shaking as they watched Lin Feng. They looked desperate, there was no chance to win. Lin Feng had already progressed so much. Die, shouted Lin Feng furiously. Some terrifying lights rolled in the air like waves. Some strong cultivators released their pure qi but it was useless. Lin Feng's sword lights lacerated everything. In a flash, everybody had died. Everybody from kilometers around had all died. Lin Feng's sword could kill people over such a huge distance. They're dead. Lin Feng had just said the word, die. And then many people from the Yu clan had suddenly died. They were all cultivators above the 5th Xian Qi layer. None of them had managed to escape. They didn't even the time to emit horrible shrieks, they had died in the blink of an eye. Yu Lu Shui closed his eyes, he hated Lin Feng. He had offended a death god. He had never thought that such a day would happen. The Yu clan didn't participate at the destruction of the Yunhai sect, so today I will be merciful. I will not destroy your clan. The weakest ones, children, women and old people can leave. I'll give you 5 minutes to leave. After that, the Yu clan will not exist anymore, said Lin Feng indifferently. In his hand had appeared a sword which looked extremely powerful. Yu Lu Shui was standing there, but he didn't try to do anything. Resisting was useless. Lin Feng was being merciful, so there was some hope. At least Lin Feng wasn't going to slaughter them like he had done in the past, there was a silver lining. The weakest ones, children, old people and women, hurry up and leave, shouted Yu Lu Shui furiously. In a flash, Lin Feng's sword light descended from the sky, and then Yu Lu Shui, the head of the Yu clan, eminent personality in Xueyu, had died. The winged tiger roared furiously, and in a flash a bright red light, like fire, streaked across the sky. The winged tiger had immediately left. The Wanshou sect was very far from the Yu clan. They were also all panic-stricken when they heard that Lin Feng was going to come and slaughter them. The strongest cultivators of the sect had even prepared to leave. All the cultivators of the Xian Qi layer of the Wanshou sect rose up in the air about to leave. They didn't care about the sect anymore. They had seen Lin Feng at the great competition of Xueyu and knew how terrifyingly strong he was. If they didn't leave, they would die. Everybody stop moving, shouted a voice on the horizon. That voice rolled in the air. Those who were already in the air immediately got nervous, then a sword light descended from the sky. Their hearts were pounding, and in a flash they died. In a flash, they had all died. Anyone who dares make half a step will die, said a voice which resonated in every corner of the Yunhai sect. People raised their heads and saw a young man who looked astonishing. He was so young and had dazzled at the great competition of Xueyu. Now, he was the ruler of Xueyu. He alone could annihilate an entire country already. It did not matter how many people there were facing such a powerful cultivator, they couldn't do anything. Haven't you heard me? Asked Lin Feng, looking into the distance with his sharp eyes. Someone was still trying to escape, but then Lin Feng's sword light descended from the sky and killed that person. Nobody had even been able to see that sword clearly. Roar roar. The ferocious wild beasts of the Wanshou sect started running and roaring. They were furious and terrified at the same time. People remained silent, absolutely silent. Ting Wu Yao, come out, said Lin Feng. Immediately after, Ting Wu Yao appeared in the sky staring at Lin Feng. Lin Feng looked at Ting Wu Yao. Surprisingly, Ting Wu Yao, who usually looked furiously, suddenly smiled in a particularly strange way. Ting Wu Yao, in the past you tried to steal the well of pure qi I found in the mountains of the 9 swords. You and your people wanted to kill me. That is how we started hating each other. Back then I was only a tiny little insect in your eyes, now things have changed, said Lin Feng, whose words were like needles in Ting Wu Yao's heart. Back then, it had seemed like an insignificant event for Ting Wu Yao at the well of pure qi, but now. Chapter 703, Back to the 9 Dragons mountain chain. Now the Wanshou sect was going to disappear because of that small event. Everything was happening because the Wanshou sect had gotten angry with Lin Feng for taking few purity stones. What a ridiculous situation, but unfortunately it was truly happening. If Ting Wu Yao could go back in time, he would let Lin Feng go. But everything that had happened could not be changed. We all have choices, and sometimes those choices are not the right ones. Let's fight, said Ting Wu Yao. He then released a terrifying bestial qi and his spirit. It was a beast spirit which looked particularly evil and gloomy. All right, die, said Lin Feng while releasing a terrifying sword intent. That sword intent invaded the entire atmosphere. The hearts of the people from the Wan Shou sect were pounding violently. That sword seemed like it could destroy everything. Die! Shouted Lin Feng furiously. His sword energy shot out towards Ting Wuyao. The sword chi condensed and turned into a beam of light, leaving a gigantic trail in the sky. Roar! Ting Wuyao roared like a beast. His entire body was surrounded by a bestial chi as a gigantic black hand appeared in the sky. It was a gigantic panda hand filled with an incredible physical strength. It was going to block the sword energy. Sirrr. Sirrr. The sword chi immediately cut through the gigantic panda hand and continued moving towards Ting Wuyao. Suddenly, a pair of wings appeared from his back and he rose up in the air incredibly quickly. Patriarch of the Yunhai sect, against all expectations, you're a good cultivator, said Lin Feng, jumping forwards. He then stretched his hand and condensed some sword chi in his hand, which then turned into a gigantic sword. Die! Shouted Lin Feng furiously. He had released his level 5 sword intent. That sword light was exterminating everything its way. Ting Wuyao's wings were clapping at full speed, but it was too late. One arm which was bound with a wing was cut off. Ting Wuyao roared violently while releasing more bestial chi. However, another sword arrived and cut off his other arm. Blood was gushing everything. Every member of the Wan Shou sect was staring at their patriarch getting slaughtered. Their eyes were bloodshot. Their patriarch was being crushed by Lin Feng, and he had already lost 2 arms. Kill him, said someone at that moment. Suddenly, many people were attacking Lin Feng. Die! Shouted Lin Feng in the sky coldly. In a flash, another sword light appeared and all those who had gotten close to him had died. Lin Feng jumped forwards and arrived near Ting Wuyao. Then he released his 9-dragon celestial fang spirit which possessed 8 heads and were chanting the Song of Dragons. There were 8 heads but one of them was a shaman head. It was the shaman spirit he had swallowed in the past. I like that spirit, said Lin Feng jumping towards Ting Wuyao again. The 8 dragon heads descended and immediately swallowed Ting Wuyao's spirit. In one bite, they had swallowed it entirely. Ting Wuyao emitted a horrible shriek, his spirit had been swallowed. Then another sword light descended from the sky. Ting Wuyao was shaking violently. From the middle of his eyebrows to lower part of his body appeared a sword mark. The people of the Wan Shou sect couldn't believe their eyes as they saw Ting Wuyao's body fall down from the sky. The patriarch of the Wan Shou sect was dead. The 9-dragon celestial fang spirit then roared violently. It looked extremely cruel and ferocious. The pupils of the shaman spirit also looked more distinct, more real. It had swallowed Ting Wuyao's spirit and had merged with it. Lin Feng glared at the crowd on the ground. He then jumped forwards and landed on a Xian-level beast. The shaman spirit head stared at that beast and suddenly that beast became docile. Lin Feng could domesticate ferocious wild beasts easily now thanks to the shaman spirit, including Xian-level beasts. All the members of the Wan Shou sect saw how easy it was for Lin Feng to domesticate Xian-level beasts. However, they were surprised when they saw how easily Lin Feng had managed to swallow their patriarch's spirit. People of the Wan Shou sect didn't resist when they saw that. Nobody was trying to escape anymore either. Lin Feng's consciousness was too terrifying. He could sense every single movement within the territory of the Wan Shou sect. If anybody tried to escape, Lin Feng's sword light would lacerate them. Boom 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 boom. The ground started shaking and some rumbling sounds spread in the air. Some people were coming from the air and their chi was deadly. Those people were from the Yunhai sect and they had come to annihilate the Wan Shou sect. Lin Feng's sword light invaded the entire atmosphere and crushed all the cultivators who were of the 5th Xian Qi layer and above. After that, Lin Feng had no time to lose anymore and immediately left. Destroy the Wan Shou sect, said Lin Feng. The people of the Yunhai sect heard Lin Feng's order. Back in the day, the Wan Shou sect had participated in the destruction of the Yunhai sect. Now, Lin Feng was getting his revenge. A tooth for a tooth, he was going to destroy the Yunhai sect as well. Lin Feng left with the winged tiger, a moment before he had obtained a few ferocious wild beasts, but he left most of them there with the people of the Yunhai sect. Then Lin Feng disappeared into the horizon, as if nothing had happened. He didn't need to stay there, the rest was left in the capable hands of the Yunhai sect. Many adventurers from Xueyu like to go to the Nine Dragons mountain chain. Some people like to hunt while some others like to search for herbs and grass. At that moment, some whistling sounds were spreading in the air above the mountain chain. Some people raised their heads and saw a red silhouette, like fire. They all started shaking. How brave! Someone surprisingly dared fly like that in the sky above the mountain chain. Wasn't that person afraid of encountering Xian-level beasts? The ferocious wild beasts of the Nine Dragons mountain chain were terrifying. Few people dared to act that recklessly, it was too dangerous. The fire-red silhouette in the sky was obviously the winged tiger, and Lin Feng was on its back. The winged tiger nosedived into the depths of the mountain chain without stopping. There weren't any strong ferocious wild beasts in the periphery of the mountain chain, but Lin Feng needed some extremely strong ones. He wanted to bring some to his sect, and at the same time he would be able to use them for his wedding ceremony. How majestic would that be? The winged tiger was traveling at full speed. Lin Feng sensing the surroundings for ferocious wild beasts. A firebird. Go, said Lin Feng, jumping in the air. The winged tiger obviously understood what Lin Feng meant. He roared and opened his gigantic mouth, blood splashed as the winged tiger swallowed the firebird. The fire on Qi Qiong's body suddenly became much more intense and powerful. Lin Feng was satisfied and nodded. The winged tiger was an ancient ferocious animal. Ferocious wild beasts of the same level as him couldn't resist at all. Qi Qiong could kill them in a flash. The winged tiger then moved back to Lin Feng and they continued moving forwards. Wait, said Lin Feng suddenly. In the distance he had noticed a gigantic black ape, its body was like a monolith. It seemed to be as hard as steel, almost indestructible. A stone ape, said Lin Feng smiling. That stone ape was a level 7 Xian beast. Its body was really incredible, solid, like a gigantic tower. That ape was staring at Lin Feng, it had noticed Lin Feng as well. Stone ape, do you want to come with me? Asked Lin Feng. The stone ape roared when he heard Lin Feng, it roared so violently that the entire atmosphere started shaking. Lin Feng wanted it to become his slave. How abominable, what a detestable human being. Chapter 704, Gathering ferocious wild beasts. In a gigantic library in a building of the imperial palace of Xueyu, there were some people sitting and talking. The leader of those people was wearing a golden crown. That person looked like the king, however, it wasn't the king that people had seen last time. That person wasn't the king but was wearing the golden imperial crown. What an offense! That was defying human and divine laws. There wasn't a single guard outside of the library, nobody dared come closer as if it had been a forbidden area. It also meant that nobody dared make a remark to that person about the imperial crown. Nobody wanted to offend that person. The other people sitting around that person were all incredible. If Lei Mang had been there, he would have recognized the Shu Kong. And Yu Mo's teacher. They were all incredible cultivators of the Tian Qi layer. As expected, in order to sit down with people of the Tian Qi layer, one had to be of the Tian Qi layer as well. The one wearing the imperial crown was a cultivator of the Tian Qi layer, but in Xueyu it seemed like cultivators of the Tian Qi layer didn't exist. If there was someone of the Tian Qi layer in the imperial palace wearing an imperial crown, there was only one explanation. It had to be Duan Renhuang, one of the 4 most outstanding cultivators of the country 20 years before. At that moment, Duan Renhuang, the Shu Kong and the Yu Mo's teacher were talking together. Your Majesty, "He Sha wants to see you," said someone outside the room at that moment. He Sha was one of the officers of the Snow Dragon Imperial Guards. The Snow Dragon Imperial Guards were loyal to Duanren Huang, His Majesty. In Shuiyu there was a king, but Duanren Huang, even though he wasn't the king, was also considered a king. Everybody called him His Majesty. Only extremely strong cultivators could make decisions. Duanren Huang could thus control everything in the country of Shuiyu. It was possible to say that he was the authentic king. "Come in," said Duanren Huang. A moment later, He Sha came in and bowed very low in front of Duanren Huang. He didn't look him in the eyes when he said, "Your Majesty." "What do you want?" asked Duanren Huang, sounding imposing. He Sha raised his head and looked at the other people. He was surprised. "You can speak here," said Duanren Huang when he saw that He Sha didn't feel like talking in front of the others. "Understood, Your Majesty," said He Sha while nodding. "Your Majesty, Duan Wudao is on his way back to the country. When he's back, tell him to come and see me," said Duanren Huang, nodding indifferently. But He Sha didn't seem finished with just that. Duanren Huang looked surprised and said, "Talk if you have to add anything." "Your Majesty, Duan Wudao is coming back with some people of the Jade Heaven Imperial family," said He Sha, lowering his head. Duanren Huang was surprised. At the same time, the Shu Kong and Yumo's teacher were surprised as well. Some extremely strong cultivators from Jade Heaven were coming to Shuiyu. Duanren Huang rolled up his sleeves and immediately stood up. Then he said, "Come with me, we're going to greet the strong cultivators from Jade Heaven." The Shu Kong and the others also stood up. Duanren Huang was careful. People from Jade Heaven were so strong that he had to greet them personally. If they got angry they could destroy the entire country of Shuiyu without much effort. In the Nine Dragons mountain chain, the stone ape was still roaring furiously, but Lin Feng looked expressionless. He just screamed, "Enough!" A terrifying sound wave spread in the air. It was as sharp as a sword as it crashed onto the ape's body. Lin Feng was extremely far from the animal, but his voice could still harm it. The stone ape was roaring furiously but finally stopped. Lin Feng said coldly while fixedly staring at the animal, "Submit yourself." Roar. A deep roar emerged out of the ape's mouth. Immediately after, the ape started running at Lin Feng, causing the ground to shake. It lifted its hands to grab Lin Feng and crush him. "If you don't submit yourself I will test how strong your defense is," said Lin Feng indifferently. He then condensed a gigantic sword in his hand. Rumbling sounds were still spreading in the air. Lin Feng's soul was shaking, but he looked as expressionless as before. A terrifying sword chi had spread in the air and then the sword fell down. Kacha. Some crackling sound started spreading in the air and then the sound stopped abruptly. The stone ape was speechless as it lowered its head and saw a sword mark on its abdomen. There was blood. Lin Feng was a bit surprised. He hadn't thought that the stone ape was that strong. Lin Feng had broken through to the 8th Xian Qi layer and had used level 1 sword intent. He required so much strength just to harm the stone ape. Most other animals would have died after such an attack. "I haven't used my full strength yet. You have to submit yourself or you will die," said Lin Feng coldly. At the same time, his dragon spirit started roaring. From his back appeared his 9-dragon celestial fang spirit. The stone ape was astonished. That spirit was a dragon spirit. "Initially, I could make you submit yourself with my spirit, but I just wanted to be nice to you," said Lin Feng, as coldly as before. His shaman spirit then began staring at the stone ape with its gigantic pupils. The stone ape's eyes couldn't evade that shaman spirit. Unsurprisingly, Lin Feng managed to make the stone ape submit itself. Just like he had said, he was able to make it submit itself very quickly without any effort, but he wanted the stone ape to fear him, so he had used his sword first. People had to be extremely strict to animals to make them respect them. "Go to the periphery of the 9 Dragons mountain chain and wait for me there. I need some other animals," said Lin Feng to the stone ape. Immediately after, he moved forwards the depths of the mountain chain. Rumbling sounds were spreading in the air. The stone ape immediately started running towards the edge of the mountain chain. It also met some humans which were scared to death seeing it. People were terrified. What was such a strong ferocious wild beast doing at the periphery of the Nine Swords mountain chain? Was that a beast flood? However, the crowd at the periphery of the mountain started shaking. A slayer tiger, a cyan-winged clouded leopard, a celestial-eyes snake, an eight-legged violent bull. All of those animals had appeared at the edge of the mountain chain. People were going insane with fear. All those beasts were at least level 5 Xian beasts. People didn't dare approach the mountain chain anymore. Sometimes the beasts would glance at those people and scared them even more. Is it a beast flood? Thought the adventurers. More beasts were still arriving, some by sky and some on the ground. They were all extremely strong. All the weakest beasts of the Nine Dragons mountain chain were escaping and running far away when they sensed the monstrous chi of all those beasts. They didn't dare get close. What astonished people the most was that all of those beasts were gathering together. They weren't fighting against each others, they were just calmly waiting together. Then some whistling sound spread in the air, causing people to raise their heads. They saw a silhouette in the sky and it was a human being on the back of a fire-red ferocious wild beast. That person flew to that gathering of ferocious wild beasts. The crowd started shaking violently. Could it be that? They were finally thinking about a possibility. It was a winged tiger, so the young man on its back had to be Lin Feng. Chapter 705, Astonishing. In fact, it was precisely what people had guessed. That young man on his winged tiger was Lin Feng and he had joined the group of ferocious wild beasts. Some of the beasts couldn't fly so they had to walk. They were all lowering their heads and followed the heroic young man. Some were emitting subtle sounds, like docile pets. Human beings could barely believe such a thing. The scene looked incredible. Such a monstrous group of ferocious wild beasts, all extremely strong, led by such a young man was incredible. Even if those beasts were lowering their heads, their chi was still monstrous and enough to scare people from miles away. Lin Feng had gone to the Nine Dragons mountain chain to hunt and had surprisingly captured lots of Xian-level beasts. They were all terrifying. Only a genius could do such a thing. If a strong ferocious wild beast of the Nine Dragons mountain chain had appeared in the cities of Xueyu, or even outside of the mountain chain, it would have been enough to scare everybody away and cause mass panic. And on Lin Feng's side there was also a winged tiger which had bloodshot eyes and it looked extremely ferocious. "Let's go," said Lin Feng. Immediately after, Lin Feng and the beast started walking forwards. The other ferocious wild beasts were following him closely. He then disappeared from the mountain chain and arrived on open fields. Some people fell down on the ground, they had no strength and were too nervous. They were covered with sweat and shivering violently. They knew that only one of those beasts could kill them all. But such terrifying beasts as Xian-level beasts had submitted themselves to Lin Feng. What was Lin Feng doing? Many people were shaking. Lin Feng could destroy Xueyu with so many strong beasts. The ground was shaking in Xueyu. However, it wasn't because Lin Feng was walking with so many ferocious wild beasts, it was because the Yunhai sect was exterminating the Yu clan. Apart from old people, women, children and extremely weak people, all the others were killed. In one day, they had all died, the Yu clan had disappeared from Xueyu. Just like the Yu clan, the Wanshou sect was destroyed as well. However, the fate of the Wanshou sect was even more tragic than that of the Yu clan because none of them had been left alive. Every single member of the Wanshou sect died. Yu Lu Shui, former head of the Yu clan, and Ting Wu Yao, former patriarch of the Wanshou sect, used to be considered as influential people in Xueyu, but Lin Feng had killed them. Lin Feng wasn't even 20 years old, but he had won the great competition of Shuiyu and had been conferred the title of ruler of Shuiyu. After the destruction of the Yu clan and the Wanshou sect, some people who belonged to smaller spheres of influence had gone to the imperial city where the Yu clan and the Wanshou sect were. They were hoping to steal things, but they were disappointed to find that all the buildings were empty. The Yunhai sect had stolen everything already. The Yunhai sect was incredibly powerful, they had made the Yu clan and the Wanshou sect crumble to ashes. People were convinced that the Yunhai sect would rise to the very top of the country, it was only a matter of time. The Wanshou sect and the Yu clan were destroyed by the Yunhai sect. Have you already heard? Nothing is left of them, said someone in a restaurant of the imperial city. However, it seemed like everybody was talking about the same thing in that restaurant. Everybody was only talking about Lin Feng. In such a short time, Lin Feng had astonished the entire country. Lin Feng had surprised the country so many times that it seemed like the country had changed with Lin Feng's rise. Every era had its own geniuses. This time, it wouldn't be an exception, it was Lin Feng's era, he was monstrously strong. Even Duan Wudao the crown prince was under pressure. Of course I know because the news is already old. I knew it would happen before it today anyways. The Wanshou sect and the Yu clan used to hate Lin Feng and had even tried to kill him a few times. If Lin Feng hadn't had his parents and good friends, he would have died a long time ago. Now he has become strong enough to get his revenge, replied someone. Everybody was nodding. They all liked Lin Feng though. He used to be weak and now he was strong. They admired him, they all hoped to become like him, to become strong. If someday they could rise and become as strong as him, they would be able to get their revenge on people. They would be able to kill anyone they wanted. They would have no more pressure and their hearts wouldn't feel as heavy. Hee, Lin Feng killed all his enemies, said someone smiling merrily. Boom. At that moment, the ground started shaking. It seemed like the restaurant was going to break. Huh. People were scared and looked outside the restaurant. What was going? Boom boom boom. Some rumbling sounds kept spreading in the air. Some animals were galloping at full speed, some cracks started appearing on the walls of the restaurant. The glasses and bowls were also shaking on the table. What's going on? Asked some people as they stood up. They were all looking at the tables terrified. It seemed like the restaurant was about to collapse. Gotcha. Those terrifying sounds made people's hearts shake. They raised their heads and saw some more cracks on the ceiling on the restaurant. Their hearts were beating faster and faster. It seemed like an earthquake. Go, let's go, said people one after the other. They ran outside but had suddenly stopped. It seemed like thunders were attacking them. Boom boom boom. Crevices kept appearing in the ground. Their hearts were bouncing back and forth. What was happening? In front of them was a gigantic stone ape, it was more than 3 meters high. It was violently trampling on the ground, taking giant strides. Each of his steps were a few dozen meters and the ground would crack under its feet. Its chi and force were terrifying, he could easily kill anyone in his way. Even more terrifying was behind that stone ape, there was a snake that was as long as 20 meters and it was sticking out its tongue. There were wild beasts everywhere, the rest of the world seemed to fade in comparison with that scene. There were even beasts in the sky flying. People's hearts were pounding vigorously. Lin Feng. Finally, the crowd noticed a red beast, red like fire. It was a winged tiger, and on its back there was a young man. It had to be Lin Feng. Boom. The crowd ran away when the stone ape and as more beasts arrived in front of the restaurant. They were terrified. They were not the only ones, everybody was reacting the same way. The people of the imperial city couldn't believe their eyes. That scene would remain with them for a very long time, they would never forget it. They had already seen those ferocious wild beasts but never in such a large group. It was terrifying, that monstrous group of ferocious wild beasts were all being controlled by such a young man as Lin Feng. Those ferocious wild beasts were moving very quickly, soon they had all arrived in the Yunhai sect. The members of the Yunhai sect were all shaking. With all those beasts, the Yunhai sect would become one of the most powerful spheres of influence in the country. Apart from the Imperial City clan, nobody could rival with them. Chapter 706, Underground Current. Duan Wuya was in the Imperial City sitting on a redwood chair and had a pen in his hand as if he had been writing something. "Your Highness," said someone at that moment while bowing but hadn't entered the room. The second prince looked calm, indifferent and serene, but Nan Shan, as the assistant of the second prince, knew that Duan Wuya wasn't the same person as before. He had changed and had become extremely influential, but he still had a nice and friendly smile on his face. "Nan Shan," said Duan Wuya, nodding. He smiled gently and said, "What brings you here? Tell me." "All right," said Nan Shan respectfully. He walked forwards and entered the palace. He was walking carefully. "Nan Shan, tell me," said Duan Wuya when he saw that Nan Shan was remaining silent. "Your Highness, Duan Wu Dao came back with some strong cultivators of Jade Heaven. Duan Ren Huang, a strong cultivator of the Deshu family, and several others went to greet him personally," said Nan Shan slowly. Duan Wuya lowered his head a little, his eyes were twinkling. Duan Wu Dao had come back. "Besides, Lin Feng's wedding is planned for half a month from now," said Nan Shan. Duan Wuya was smiling indifferently. "Half a month later, he knows how to choose dates," said Duan Wuya with a particularly evil expression on his face. "Let's execute the plan earlier then." "Roger, Your Highness," said Nan Shan, nodding. He slowly walked backwards without turning around. He then bowed in front of Duan Wuya again. Only after leaving the palace did he turn back around. Nan Shan had changed from before, he was smart and knew what he had to do to adapt to different situations. After Nan Shan left, Duan Wuya smiled in an evil way for a long time. Then he said, "Father, you privileged my big brother, you chose him and not me. You think that he is stronger than me. I will show you that you are wrong." Duan Wu Dao had been chosen, but Duan Wuya was furious that it hadn't been him. Duan Ren Huang hadn't chosen Duan Wuya. Duan Ren Huang's choice was extremely important in Duan Wu Dao and Duan Wuya's lives, and was going to influence their destinies. One was extremely aggressive and violent, while one was suffering silently but firmly resolved to get his revenge. Lin Feng went back to the Yunhai sect and organized some things. He then consulted Mr. Hua and Mr. Qi in an alchemy room. Before exterminating the Yu clan and the Wanshou sect, Lin Feng had already told Mr. Qi and Mr. Hua what he intended to do. He had told them to concoct 500 Xian level pills of middle quality to help the cultivators of the Ling Qi layer break through to the Xian Qi layer, especially those who had already broken through to the very top of the Ling Qi layer. For the latter, the probability of breaking through to the Xian Qi layer was going to be higher. Of course, those pills were difficult to concoct and the ingredients were extremely precious. After annihilating the Yu clan and the Wanshou sect, Mr. Hua and Mr. Qi had already gathered the ingredients. Some ingredients had been too difficult to gather in the wild, so they had gone to shops to buy them, but that still wasn't enough. Lin Feng had gone to the Nine Dragons mountain chain, and apart from domesticating some ferocious wild beasts, he had collected some rare Xian branches to concoct pills. It would have been too difficult if Lin Feng had tried to find those rare branches by himself. However, amongst the beasts he had domesticated, some were able to find those branches easily. All the ingredients were there in the alchemy room. "Mr. Hua, Mr. Qi, ready?" asked Lin Feng. He then created a terrifying fire. In a flash, the liquid in the heavenly dragon ancient cauldron was bathed in a sea of flames. Sounds were emerging from out of the ancient dragon cauldron. It was the chant of the dragons. How intriguing. "Move," said Lin Feng. Mr. Qi and Mr. Hua then put some ingredients inside the cauldron, and those three men together started to concoct pills. Lin Feng was the main actor while Mr. Qi and Mr. Hua were assisting him. They were progressively putting ingredients inside the cauldron. A pleasant fragrance invaded the atmosphere of the room. Mr. Qi and Mr. Hua were relaxed, they were attentive to Lin Feng. They still had the impression that their honor was being affected. Lin Feng's fire had exceeded all their expectations. Lin Feng's soul was extremely strong, he could control so many things with it. Lin Feng was incredibly smart. The two old men looked at each other smiling. They had made a right decision back when they had joined Lin Feng. He was progressing extremely fast. In the future, he would be even stronger. He already had the strength to make an entire elite army break through to the Xian Qi layer. In the future, he would be able to help them become stronger again. At the same time, they were impatient to see what Lin Feng's future would be like. Back in the Celestial River, Lin Feng used to be a tiny cultivator. Back then Lin Feng's future was unsure, they weren't certain that Lin Feng would become strong. Concocting Xian-level pills was successful. Even though Lin Feng had never tried to concoct such pills, with his strong and powerful soul and his fire, coupled with the alchemical memories of the Zun cultivator, Lin Feng had managed to concoct the pills with the first try. Besides, no pill had been wasted. There were 500 pills in the cauldron. Mr. Qi and Mr. Hua were astonished. After concocting the pills, Lin Feng left alone and silently. He had left the pills to them. Lin Feng still wanted to concoct some other pills, the divine water pills. But he still wasn't sure that he could manage to concoct them. Chapter 707, Danger in Duanren City. The country of Xueyu dispatched people everywhere to tell the entire country that Lin Feng had become the ruler of Xueyu, and that he was going to get married with Princess Duan Xinyi. Many people were arriving in the imperial city every day. They all wanted to see the majestic wedding of the ruler of Xueyu. That would be such a festive celebration. The hotels and restaurants of the imperial city were packed full of people. There were even more people now than with the national genius competition before the great competition of Xueyu. Those who had seen how dazzling Lin Feng had been at the Xiangjiang Lake had come back to the imperial city. They all wanted to see how strong Lin Feng had become. Those who had missed the national competition didn't want to miss Lin Feng's performance this time, so they had all come. The wedding of a monarch or a ruler wasn't necessarily something really attractive for most people, but Lin Feng had astonished the entire country and had ranked first at the great competition of Xueyu. Then he had been conferred the title of ruler of Xueyu. For many people, that was incredible. Many worshipped and admired Lin Feng, many were longing to become friends with Lin Feng and reach the clouds with him. There were many people outside the imperial city. They all wanted to go into the city, but very few wanted to come out. Iya. In the distance was an armored horse galloping at full speed. The person on that horse was wearing a red armor, red like blood. That person penetrated into the city at full speed like a hurricane. "Stop!" shouted someone furiously, trying to prevent that person from entering. "Fuck off!" shouted the knight, his spear turned into a blood-red light and immediately crashed into the guard's throat. The cavalier didn't turn his head around as entered the city, not caring about the guard. "It's a military member from Duanren City," thought the crowd, stupefied when they saw that person. What was happening? Why was he rushing into the imperial city? That Qi Xia armored horse didn't stop and immediately galloped towards the lovesickness forest. Obviously that person was looking for Lin Feng. "Lin Feng," said that person still on his horseback. He then entered the lovesickness forest but was ambushed by some silhouettes. They were white-clothed women were shouting at him coldly, "Stop." Their sleeves fluttered as they blocked the Qi Xia horse. A terrifying force immobilized the Qi Xia armored horse. Boom! A terrifying attack crashed onto that person's body, causing him to collapse. His head was bleeding, he looked terrified as he said, I'm looking for Lin Feng. What is happening? Speak, said a woman in white clothes. Her tone of speech was still ice cold. Mou and Lai Yun are killing our Shuiyu troops. A huge war has started. Duanren City is surrounded and it is a matter of life and death, the danger is imminent. A few hundred thousands of troops could die any time. I want to see Lin Feng. That person was speaking very quickly, ignoring his wounds. What are you saying? Said a voice rolling in the air. Two people with bronze masks then appeared in front of him. Han Man immediately grabbed him and asked, "Are you serious?" "It is a real war, how could I joke about it?" shouted that person furiously. Han Man was shaking, he then let go of that person, turned around and went to look for Lin Feng. But Lin Feng was already coming to them. "Lin Feng, brother, Duanren City is in danger," said Han Man while gnashing his teeth. "How shameless, Umo and Lai Yun dared attack Shuiyu together." Lin Feng looked expressionless as he walked towards that person. He raised his head and looked at Lin Feng. "Lin Feng, master, Duanren City is in danger." "Did you immediately come from Duanren City?" asked Lin Feng. "Indeed," replied that person nodding. "Why didn't you look for the Shuiyu troops first?" asked Lin Feng. "Lin Feng, master, the danger in Duanren City is imminent. The troops could die at any moment, you have to save them," said that person, falling down onto his knees and begging Lin Feng. He didn't reply to Lin Feng's question though. "Shut the fuck up," shouted Lin Feng furiously. Han Man was astonished, what was Lin Feng doing? "When did Mou and Lai Yun attack?" asked Lin Feng extremely loudly. That person's brain was shaking. He raised his head and looked at Lin Feng. 7 days ago. During the chaos of the war, I immediately left and came to look for you." "Ridiculous. 7 days ago, you rushed over to the imperial city, but how did you know that I had come back to Shuiyu?" asked Lin Feng coldly. That person was shaking. "Lin Feng, master, you became the ruler of Shuiyu. Everybody knows that already. Even then, after you left the war, how did you know I was in the lovesickness forest?" asked Lin Feng furiously again. "Huh?" Han Man and Pajun were stupefied. Indeed, Han Man and Pajun hadn't thought about that. Besides, with your cultivation of the Ling Qi layer 7 days wouldn't have been enough to come here from Duanren City. Even though you are soaked in blood you don't look tired or injured at all. "Do you think that I'm stupid?" shouted Lin Feng furiously. He then added, "Who sent you here? What is your purpose?" That person was astonished as he stared at Lin Feng. What a terrifying young man. That person then wiped the blood off his face and slowly stood up. "You can believe me or not," said that person. Then a dagger appeared on that person's heart. Lin Feng wasn't ready. That person was smiling in a strange and evil way as he collapsed. Lin Feng couldn't explain why that person had been so calm and why he had killed himself. The most terrifying thing about such people was their attitude towards death, not their strength. Someone who didn't fear death was terrifying. "Lin Feng, what should we do?" asked Han Man slowly walking towards Lin Feng. Han Man had a strange sensation, especially because of that person's evil smile. Han Man wasn't the only one that felt that way, Lin Feng had the same sensation. It seemed like something was happening. "Go and find Uncle Ren. They are officers and probably know how to get Duanren news quickly. Check if what he said is true or not, but do so as quickly as possible," said Lin Feng. Han Man nodded and said, "All right, let's go." Han Man then immediately left with Pajun. The Yunhai sect wasn't very far from the lovesickness forest, Han Man could go there very quickly. After the two of them left, Lin Feng frowned, the wedding date was approaching quickly. He had already planned to go to Duanren City after the wedding to see Uncle Lu, but he hadn't thought that something so strange would happen. Lin Feng hoped that nothing bad would happen in Duanren City, but Ren Qingquang and the others had stopped communication with Duanren City. Besides, it seemed like obtaining news from Duanren City would require at least one night. Lin Feng had planned to go there, but then a group of Qi Xie horses arrived in the imperial city and they had gone to see Ren Qingquang at the Yunhai sect. They knew how terrible the situation was when Ren Qingquang and the others arrived. The leader was actually an officer of Duanren City. General Lin Feng, Officer Ren Qingquang, said the troops kneeling down. Their eyes were bloodshot and getting redder and redder. "Stand up and tell me clearly what happened," said Lin Feng furiously. His voice made people's souls shake. They became clear-headed suddenly. "Roger, General," said the troops standing up. The one who seemed to be their leader said, "Duanren City is about to collapse. Mou and Lai Yun have gone insane." Surprisingly, they attacked Duanren City together. In one night our guards in Duanren border all disappeared and the army abandoned it heading to Duanren City. Now, they have surrounded Duanren City, nobody can go out or in. We took a huge risk coming here. We had asked the government for help but they refused. They don't care about saving us, they don't care about the fact that Duanren City could disappear. Chapter 708, Extreme Sadness. Lin Feng and the others were speechless as their hearts kept pounding. It really seemed like the situation was catastrophic for Duanren City. Lin Feng's eyes looked ice-cold. Lin Feng had never counted on Xueyu for anything. Back then, Xueyu already only cared about themselves. A few hundreds of thousands of troops had died away from their hometowns because of Duan Tianlang. And on top of that Lu Tsonglan had almost gotten killed. Lin Feng had hurried to save Lu Tsonglan, but from that moment on, Lin Feng knew that the king of Xueyu was heartless. So many troops had died but nobody cared. Those who controlled the country treated people like toys. They were like animals and if they died, it didn't matter. Uncle Lu also knew that from the beginning to the end, he had always given his best to protect Duanren City. No matter what the situation was, he wanted to protect the country from foreign invaders. The soldiers of Xueyu had sacrificed their lives to protect their country, however, Xueyu had done nothing to protect them. They had treated those human beings as mere objects and had let them die in such tragic conditions. The one who killed himself was surprisingly telling the truth, thought Lin Feng. He didn't understand that person, why had someone sent him to Lin Feng? "Let's go to Duanren City," said Lin Feng, jumping forwards and began leaving. "Lin Feng," said Ren Qingquang. "It will be your wedding soon. Everybody knows about it, you can't go." "I will go." "Indeed, Lin Feng, you cannot go." "Let us go," said Feng Yuhan. "You're not going either." "I'm going alone, I'm taking beasts and Qi Xie troops and that'll be enough. With the current strength of the Qi Xie troops and the Xian-level pills we now have, we will easily be able to defeat those people from Mou and Lai Yun," said Ren Qingquang. Feng Yuhan could tell from Ren Qingquang's eyes that he understood what he meant. Duanren City had been surrounded, someone had sent someone to find Lin Feng. It seemed like someone wanted Lin Feng to leave the imperial city. There were two possibilities. One was that someone wanted Lin Feng to go to Duanren City where it would be dangerous. The second one was that immediately after leaving the imperial city, something dangerous could immediately happen. In any case, the situation was dangerous, so Lin Feng couldn't go anywhere. Ren Qingquang was worried, so he had prevented Feng Yuhan from coming with him. He wanted to go alone with some Qi Xie brothers. "No, how could I not come?" asked Lei Qingtian. They were all fighting to go. "Little Feng has come back with so many monstrously strong, ferocious wild beasts. I can fly with them and the Qi Xie troops can follow, that should be enough to fight. A few more people would be useless. Lin Feng's wedding is soon going to be happen, I can go alone," insisted Ren Qingquang. Feng Yutian and Lei Qingtian still wanted to talk but Ren Qingquang looked at Lin Feng and said, "Little Feng, you give your orders. We will obey your orders." Duanren City is waiting. Uncle Ren can go with the beasts. If there is something wrong, tell the beasts to leave. Otherwise, Uncle Feng go with the Qi Xie troops on the ground and surround them, said Lin Feng. He knew that he had to hurry, so he immediately gave the order. At the same time, he asked the beasts to gather around them. The situation was an emergency, there was no time for civilities. Ren Qing Quan took some cultivators of the Xian Qi layer and jumped on some beasts. Then they all rose up in the air. Feng Yuhan had gathered a part of the Qi Xie troops and left with them. They were all galloping on the huge road at full speed. It was astonishing, people were wondering what was happening. Uncle Lei, you establish a system of special intelligence forces so that we can communicate with Uncle Ren, as well as with Uncle Feng. We need the news from Duanren City in most real time possible, said Lin Feng, after Ren Qingquang and Feng Yuhan left. Of course Lei Qingtian knew what he had to do. Lin Feng sighed, he hoped that everything was going to be fine. Even though he didn't feel like it, he continued preparing for the wedding. Meng Qing and Xinyi were still waiting for him, no matter what. In the old world, women were the most important things in your life, one couldn't be careless with them. Even though Lin Feng was extremely worried, time passed by slowly and he still hadn't managed to calm down. He had the feeling that anything could happen at any time. In the blink of an eye, there were only 5 days left before the wedding and there was no news from Duanren City. Lin Feng was sitting on a bamboo chair in the lovesickness forest. Meng Qing came towards him looking stunning, and sat down on Lin Feng's lap. Are you still worried about Duanren City? Asked Meng Qing. Lin Feng nodded and stretched his hands, his arms surrounded Meng Qing's waist. He suddenly felt a little bit warmer in his heart. Don't worry, nothing bad will happen, said Meng Qing, smiling in a gentle way and hugging Lin Feng. She then lied down on Lin Feng with her entire body resting on him. She was extremely attractive and seductive. Lin Feng didn't have any perverted thought with that beautiful woman so close to him. Besides, Meng Qing had to be right, nothing could happen. Lin Feng was definitely going to get married with Duan Xinyi and Meng Qing. That kind of person was extremely rare, she was always comforting and supporting him. She had always been on his side, silently. Lin Feng could still remember how incredible Meng Qing looked on that night under the moonlight when they had first met. He could still remember the first time they had ridden a horse together. It had felt like a honeymoon. He could still remember how every man found her gorgeous. He could also remember that she had suffered a lot because of him when her body was corroded by ice energy and how she had suffered alone in her room. Now he loved her deeply, she was finally going to become his wife. The ice in her body had finally melted. She was smiling in a resplendent way most of the time. Nothing could stop them from loving each other. Even though they hadn't promised each other anything, they would stay together forever. They would always cherish their relationship. Lin Feng lowered his head and kissed Meng Qing, making her turn red. He then firmly hugged the woman he loved. It felt warm and sweet in his heart. Meng Qing looked extremely shy and blushed. Sir. Sir. The wind was making the leaves from the bamboo trees flutter. It was a bit cold as Lin Feng had the feeling that there was a stone in his heart. Suddenly, some sound spread in the air as a few women in white clothes arrived. Only those girls could disturb them. Master, shouted the girls. Yu Meng he was there too, Lin Feng's heart was pounding at full speed. Speak, said Lin Feng, he only said one word. Master, General Lu Tsonglan has been killed by people from Mou, said a girl in white. Lin Feng's chest was bouncing back and forth extremely violently. Uncle Lu had been killed. Lin Feng narrowed his eyes. They felt painful, as if he had been about to cry. That incredibly benevolent and courageous general owed his white hair to Shuiyu for whom he had fought his entire life. And now he had died by enemies from Mou. He could still remember Lu Tsonglan's voice and face. Such a good person had been killed. What about Uncle Ren and Uncle Feng? Asked Lin Feng. Officer Ren immediately died when he arrived in Duanren City. Officer Feng told his troops to stop to protect them, but he died himself with his brothers, said the woman. Maybe she didn't know the meaning of the word brothers, she was so young. But knowing that those people had died, she felt sad too. They all died. Lin Feng was stupefied. Uncle Lu, Uncle Ren and Uncle Feng had all died. Those incredible people. 2 of the 3 incredible officers. They had died so suddenly with all their brothers. Chapter 709, Duanren City. Besides, said the girl in a very low voice, lowering her head. She wanted to say something but words wouldn't come out. What is it again? Said Lin Feng while staring at that girl. They hung the 3 bodies on a wall at the Duanren border and insulted Xueyu. They said that Xueyu didn't have any strong cultivators and that nobody could protect the country, said the girl in a low voice. Lin Feng gnashed his teeth and a thread of blood flowed down his cheek. Little Feng, someone wants you to leave the imperial city and to go to Duanren City, said Yu Menghe. Even though she hadn't exchanged much with Lu Zonglan in the past, she knew that he was a heroic and incredibly benevolent general. She was also saddened by his death, she still wished that he would be avenged though. I know, said Lin Feng nodding. He obviously knew that someone wanted him to leave the imperial city, someone had sent that fake Qi Xie soldier to him. And then he had killed himself after having been uncovered. Besides, he had smiled in that evil way. Ren Qingquang had gone to Duanren City with incredibly strong beasts but had still died. In order to do that, a cultivator had to be at least the 8th Xian Qi layer. Besides, in such battles there were always extremely strong cultivators to manage. Somebody knew that Lin Feng was close to Lu Zonglan and understood Lin Feng's temperament. Lin Feng had to go to avenge those who were close to him and had been killed. Perhaps someone from Xueyu had participated at that battle. Xueyu, whispered Lin Feng. Everything sounded ridiculous. Lu Zonglan had always protected Xueyu and someone in Xueyu could have plotted against him. Lin Feng, you should go, said Meng Qing smiling. Yu Menghe was astonished. She looked at Meng Qing and said, Meng Qing, the wedding is in a few days. If he goes, everything will maybe be lost. Besides, nobody knows who's really behind all of this, he could die. But if Lin Feng leaves, someone could be here in the imperial city waiting for him to leave and kill us. Yu Menghe, if Lin Feng doesn't go he will regret it his entire life. I don't want him to suffer because of our wedding. Besides, it will affect his determination if he doesn't go. Lin Feng has said many times that he wants to break through to the Tian Qi layer, he needs to stick to his initial intentions, said Meng Qing in a soft and gentle voice. She was suggesting that Lin Feng had to go to Duanren City. The wedding wasn't the most important thing, she couldn't prevent Lin Feng from listening to his own heart. Lin Feng touched Meng Qing with his hands, she looked so pure, so innocent and so beautiful. I will definitely hurry and come back. Wait for me, said Lin Feng looking at his mother. You can go, said Yu Menghe sighing. She knew that Meng Qing was right, Lin Feng had to go to Duanren City. Thank you, Mom. Lin Feng then rose up in the air and his winged tiger appeared. Let's go, said Lin Feng jumping onto the back of the winged tiger. While moving out of the bamboo forest, he broke some branches and some bamboo leaves flew in the wind. Sad songs were resonating in Lin Feng's head, he wanted to drink the blood of Mou people. The general had died. They had no homeland and no home, apart from grief, people in Duanren City had no other feelings. In Duanren City on the ramparts, there was Lu Fei. She had become a stunning young woman, she was very mature. However, she was in a Qi Xie armor and had a white helmet on her head. She was crushed, her heart was shattered into 1,000 pieces. She was desperately looking at her father's corpse hanging on the walls of Duanren border and she felt powerless. Mississippi. Let's go and fight to the death, said an old man behind her. That old man had followed her father for many years. Her incredible general had died in such tragic circumstances. Yes, let's fight to death, miss. We are not afraid to die, said someone else, but their words couldn't affect Lu Fei's heart. She just shook her head gently and said, no, nobody can fight. But, miss. Shut the hell up, shouted Lu Fei furiously. The old man then stopped talking. Lu Fei had become an adult, but the general had died already. Even though she had the magnificent body of a woman, she had no strength. What could she do? They knew that Lu Fei was crushed. After remaining silent for a moment, the crowd looked at the general's cadaver in Duanren border and then sighed. I can't stand it anymore, shouted a soldier furiously. He immediately left Duanren city and threw himself in the direction of Duanren border. Come back, shouted Lu Fei furiously, but it was too late. In a flash, 1,000 arrows came from Duanren border and impaled him. He died in a flash. The soldier's eyes were still open and staring at the general's body. He then slowly collapsed while looking at the 3 hanging corpses. Blood appeared and flowed down on the ground. That person hadn't even closed his eyes in death, he wasn't resigned to abandon his general. That tragic scene made even more soldiers furious. Their eyes were bloodshot, so much so that it seemed like blood was going to flow out of them. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly some buzzing sound spread in the air. People in Duanren city were stupefied. They looked at Duanren border and saw some people move. At the foot of the mountain were more people moving. Was MOU making its troops retreat? Horses were galloping and the 3 corpses were taken down after that the troops left. Lai Yun and MOU were retreating. Why? Everybody was baffled on the ramparts of Duanren city. They didn't understand why the 2 countries had attacked but weren't persevering. They had killed the officers and the general as well as many extremely strong ferocious wild beasts. The enemies were extremely strong, they could have annihilated anyone in Duanren city. However, they weren't attacking anymore, instead they were retreating. What was their goal? MOU and Lai Yun had fought on the front together. Why retreat? Asked an officer from Lai Yun in silver armor, to the ones in black armor from MOU. They looked even more cruel than the people from MOU. How can I know what they're going to do? Said the general from MOU looking emotionless and indifferent. Where are we going? A few dozens of kilometers away, in the eerie Death Mountain chain. Fighting is good, but why go so far? Besides, in the depths of MOU, said the officer from Lai Yun, he was surprised. We agreed to destroy Duanren city. I came with a powerful army, so why not kill them? Nobody asked you to stay. If you want to stay here and wreck their city, do it, said the one in the black armor with a cold smile on his face. He looked like he was making fun of people from Lai Yun. A powerful army? Ridiculous. All right. Groaned that person coldly. The officer waved and people from Lai Yun stopped. The MOU general smiled coldly, his army was divided into 2. At that moment, people from Duanren city invaded Duanren border again. Lu Fei was at the top of Duanren border and gazing into the distance at the 2 armies coldly. Miss, there are still some people from Lai Yun, let's fight them, said the old man. If they didn't break through the barricade created by Lai Yun, they wouldn't be able to grab the corpses. Indeed, let's fight, miss. Otherwise, the corpses will be lost. Lu Fei's eyes were bloodshot. She remained silent for a moment and then said slowly, all units, let's mourn and then get prepared to fight. Chapter 710, Lin Feng's arrival. There were many troops gathering at the Duanren border. 5 kilometers away, there were people from Lai Yun. They could attack at any moment. They didn't need to take the initiative since Duanren city had decided to attack, they were going to become a bunch of corpses, but Lai Yun had to fight. The hoofs of the horses were emitting loud sounds in the air. The atmosphere was filled with deadly energies. After a short time the troops of Duanren City had finally gathered. A white light appeared and it was dazzling, especially in the middle of all those red armors. At the very front of the troops of Duanren City was Lu Fei. She was riding a red horse and looked expressionless. She had learned how to fight with her father, she was used to blood and cruelty. She had become stronger and more determined than ever. Even though her father had died, she could still lead an entire army. If she lost her temper, her troops would lose theirs. She raised her head and gazed into the distance to see a tragic scene. "Father, I will not give up. I wasn't able to protect you and I might not be able to avenge you, so now I will fight to death. I hope that you won't blame me," whispered Lu Fei in a low voice. Lu Fei then bent her body and started shooting arrows which emitted whistling sounds in the air. Die! Die die! Die die die! Lu Fei's voice kept resonating in the air, the atmosphere was filled with a deadly energy. The army also threw themselves at the people from Lai Yun. The general of the Lai Yun troops gazed into the distance and smiled coldly. He then unsheathed his long sword which emitted ice-cold lights in the air. "People from Duanren City are so weak. Without the order to withhold our attack, you would have died many times over," whispered the general from Lai Yun. His sword was pointing at the army moving towards him. The sound of the horse hoofs was resonating everywhere in the region. It seemed like the ground was going to break apart. Die! The ground kept shaking, the sky too. There were deadly energies everywhere and whistling sounds were growing louder and louder. Some Lai Yun people then rose up in the air and their silhouettes flickered. Their qi was extremely powerful. They were all strong cultivators of the Xian qi layer. For an army, cultivators of the Xian qi layer were already extremely strong. "Die!" shouted an ice-cold voice. Some pure qi rose up in the air and more people died. Qi Xie troops were elite, but when facing cultivators of the Xian qi layer, they had no way to resist. Die die die! That group of strong cultivators of the Xian qi layer from Lai Yun couldn't be stopped. They were annihilating people one after the other. Lu Fei raised her head and looked at the cultivators of the Xian qi layer in the sky. She released her arrow spirit and a terrifying arrow appeared. She put that arrow in a bow and her horse started galloping forwards, she then rose up in the air. Lu Fei had already broken through to the second Xian qi layer. Her arrow landed in someone's hand, making them cry in pain. That person had broken through to the first Xian qi layer, he was staring at Lu Fei in an ice-cold way. "Lu Tsanglan's daughter must be taken home so Olive can have fun, she's probably very sweet in bed," said some perverted people staring at her. They were very aroused by Lu Fei's red clothes, they looked as hot as fire. "Pay attention," said one of them looking evil. They had been in the army for such a long time, it was boring. They surrounded Lu Fei again and another arrow appeared in her hand which made them groan coldly. A terrifying physical strength then attacked Lu Fei. The arrow lacerated that physical strength, but at the same time, many other people were attacking her. She groaned in pain as she was projected backwards. Boom boom boom. There were galloping horses in the distance and around them was a cloud of dust. The crowd looked at Duanren border and saw several dozens of thousands of troops. Qi Xie troops, all of them, thought the crowd surprised. When Feng Yuhan heard that Lu Tsanglan had died, he ordered their troops to come with him. Were they going to attack? "Everybody listen to me. Lin Feng is coming from the imperial city, I heard that. Please persevere," said the officer to his troops who had all broken through to the Xian qi layer. Then they rose up in the air. The army rose up in the air in front Duanren City, but the fact that Lin Feng was coming didn't make them feel better. Even with Lin Feng, what could they do? Lin Feng was too young and couldn't keep such a dangerous situation under control. They didn't know that Lin Feng was very strong. Humph. Some troops groaned coldly and more people rose up in the air. They all had huge blades in their hands. Die, said two people moving like the wind. They then attacked two cultivators of the Xian Qi layer with their blades. Miss Lu. We are sorry for General Lu. Now, we will take care of you, said the two cultivators. Their qi was extremely powerful. Lu Fei looked ice-cold as she took out a sword, however her sword was immediately broken by the enemies as an energy wave bombarded her body. Blood gushed out of her mouth. Miss Lu, you don't need to suffer so much. We will always love you, said two cultivators moving towards Lu Fei, whose face had turned deathly pale. Strong cultivators from Liyun were so much stronger than Duanren City's people. Roarer. In the distance a beast was roaring. People shivered and raised their heads, then they saw a red beast. It was a ferocious ancient animal. Its wings were clapping at full speed. General Lin Feng arrived, said some Qi Xia troops who had come from the Yunhai sect. Lin Feng then descended from the sky. Arrow, shouted Lu Fei loudly. Immediately after, her bowsprit shot an arrow which cut through the sky at full speed. Die. Two other people with blades then lacerated her arrow and continued chasing her. Destroy, said someone behind Lu Fei coldly. The atmosphere was filled with a monstrous sword energy which could lacerate everything. However, the blade energies had still managed to hurt Lu Fei and sent her backwards. Lu Fei then sensed a gentle energy grab her body and prevent her from falling down. She realized that she landed in someone's arms. She could see some footprints on the ground that were left by an animal. She then turned her head around and was in disbelief. She had seen those eyes already. They looked deep and enigmatic but as before twinkling. There was some coldness inside of those pupils now. Back then, he looked infantile but now he had become mature. He looked even smarter. It was the same young man as before but with a completely different qi. She couldn't even sense that qi clearly. Stand up, said Lin Feng putting Lu Fei on the back of the winged tiger. He turned his head around and looked at the two cultivators using blades. He then released an ice-cold energy. It seemed like the ice-cold blade of a sword. That energy immediately penetrated into those people's eyes. They were terrified and their hearts started pounding. That young man was very strong. His terrifying sword energy then rose up in the sky. They were shaking. They couldn't help but shake violently. At that moment, they were bathing in an infinite amount of sword energy and couldn't break free. Die, shouted an ice-cold voice. Whistling sound spread in the air. A terrifying sword light streaked through the sky and those two people started shaking brutally. An infinity of sword lights impaled them. They were fixedly staring at Lin Feng and were terrified. The wind was blowing on their bodies. The sword light covered them once again. Their bodies turned into dust and the wind blew them away. It was astonishing. Chapter 7:11 Great regrets. Many people were looking at that silhouette in the sky. They were so focused on him that they were even forgetting to fight. The young man who had just arrived was terrifying. He was even more terrifying than all the beasts which had come before. That young man didn't look imposing at all, but in front of Lu Fei, he looked like a mountain. A mountain that was impossible to destroy. She remembered the first time she had seen Lin Feng in the valley where she used to practice cultivation. She had chased Lin Feng to kill him. Lin Feng was extremely weak back then. He was extremely skinny too. Step by step, she had witnessed his rise. Even his father liked Lin Feng a lot and had hoped that his daughter would someday marry Lin Feng. Lin Feng, these days didn't even need to move, but he could release a terrifying sword light which could cover the entire atmosphere. He had become much stronger than Lu Fei. Lin Feng's sword light was as strong as 10,000 swords together. It could lacerate everything. It was astonishing. Lu Fei couldn't imagine what it was like to be that strong. She had never thought that Lin Feng would become that strong either. She had the feeling that she hadn't seen him for a century. Lin Feng and Lu Fei didn't belong to the same world anymore. At that moment Lin Feng looked ice-cold, despising all the enemies. He then shouted, "Everybody stop." His terrifying voice rolled in the atmosphere like sound waves, making everybody's brain shake. Some people even started shaking violently. Everybody was forgetting that they were there to fight. They raised their heads and looked up at Lin Feng. "Duanren city troops, move back," said Lin Feng in an ice-cold way yet extremely firmly. The Duanren city troops, of course, knew who Lin Feng was. That young man, who at that moment was riding a terrifying ferocious ancient animal, had, in the past, set the city on fire and saved everybody. Was he going to influence the battle again? Last time, Lin Feng had proved how smart he was. The troops chaotically moved back, moving away from the Lai Yun troops. They were moving very fast. Lin Feng, like a hero, had made the entire troops move back. All the troops were listening to Lin Feng without hesitation. Of course they trusted him. Thanks to what he had done in the past and also thanks to his strength at that moment. "Can he really change the course of the battle alone, by himself?" whispered Lu Fei. That was a really peerless cultivator. Being able to affect the course of a war alone, just like Mo Jie's teacher, Han Mo, and the principal of the Celestial Academy No. 1, Yan Yupingsheng. With their strength, in the past they had been able to affect the course of an entire war. With the strength of one strong cultivator, the course of an entire war could change. Had Lin Feng reached such a strength? Very quickly, the troops of Duanren City and Lai Yun were away from each other. There was a big empty area between them. Both armies raised their heads and looked at Lin Feng. The general of Lai Yun narrowed his eyes. There was no extremely strong cultivators with them. Was that young man extremely strong? "Go and kill him," said the general to two strong guards on his side. Those two were guards of Lai Yun. They were some of the strongest cultivators they had. They had both broken through to the 6th Xian Qi layer. He didn't believe that Lin Feng was that strong. But those two cultivators looked solemn and serious. They were strong enough to know that Lin Feng was a real threat for them. With his attack a moment before, he had showed them how strong he was. They couldn't afford being careless. The two cultivators jumped into the air. However, Lin Feng didn't even glance at those two people. He put his hand on his back and unsheathed a sword. Buzz! The sword was emitting some buzzing sounds. In Lin Feng's back appeared a blood-like red light which rose up in the air. It seemed like he was attacking the clouds as a terrifying sword energy then invaded the entire atmosphere. The two enemies were stupefied. That sword energy contained sword intent. The red light had appeared and made the earth and sky shake. Whistling sounds were spreading in the air. That sword chi and intent were terrifying. The crowd had the feeling that they were being oppressed. The two enemies in the air suddenly stopped. No. It doesn't look good. The two of them started moving back down, but it was already too late. The crowd saw Lin Feng's sword descend and the bright red light streaked across the sky. The two cultivators were lacerated like minced meat as blood gushed everywhere. However, the blood didn't fall down. It moved back and penetrated into Lin Feng's bloodthirsty sword. That sword could drink blood. The two cultivators of the 6th Xian Qi layer had been destroyed in a flash. Everybody remained silent. That sword made excitement and ardor invade the hearts of the Duanren city troops. However, the troops of Lai Yun were terrified and shaking. After a short moment, the troops of Duanren city shouted furiously as if they had been trying to evacuate their sadness and fury. Back then, a mythical hero from Mou had appeared and he had been wearing black clothes. He had killed a massive amount of people. Now they were the ones who had a real hero on their side. He was strong enough to be called a hero. That young man had traveled over huge distances to save the princess in the past. He had then tricked the Mou troops into Duanren city and had set the city on fire. Now he had already become a real hero. "You will pay with your blood for what you have done, now you will regret it forever," said Lin Feng slowly. A massive amount of sword intent appeared, people's hearts were pounding even faster. Lin Feng made a step forwards, took a deep breath, and it seemed like his sword intent could annihilate the planet. "You will pay with your lives," said Lin Feng, his eyes were bloodshot and looked cruel and ferocious. "Die! Die die! Die die die!" Lin Feng shouted the word "die," which resonated in the atmosphere like waves. The earth and sky were vibrating. The sword chi was emitting loud whistling sounds, and the sword energy turned into a real sword light which moved towards the army of Lai Yun. It was taking their lives one after the other, just like specks of grass. The people from Lai Yun were collapsing one after the other. They looked extremely weak at that moment. The sword light kept moving and nobody could stop it. That oppressive sword light was incredible. After Lin Feng's sword energies streaked across the sky, filled with sword intent, blood started flowing on the ground like a river. Lu Fei and the Duanren city troops were stunned. Lin Feng had really become monstrously strong. He had just killed a few dozens of thousands of troops in a flash. They had heard rumors that some extremely strong cultivators could cut through mountains, kill people as if they had been cutting specks of grass, and could kill millions of people in a flash. However, they were only now understanding what those rumors meant. Those rumors were not groundless. Such strong cultivators existed. Lin Feng was furious and was doing those things. Blood kept flowing like a gigantic river. Under that sword light, everybody had to die. People couldn't breathe under the pressure of that sword light. They raised their heads and saw Lin Feng raise both his hands. The sunlight was shining upon Lin Feng's bright red sword. It was dazzling. The red light then streaked across the sky and lacerated another group of people. Not a single one was left. The other group left was terrified. Their hearts were pounding violently. Dozens of thousands of strong cultivators were like tiny little insects in front of them, just like specks of grass. Those who were still alive lied down on the ground. They were sweating intensively. They regretted so much, everything they had done. The general of Lai Yun was also shaking. Now he understood why the general of Mou had left. Staying there would lead them to their death, and the mystical cultivator in black clothes hadn't appeared this time. Die! Lin Feng's bloodthirsty sword was pointing in the direction of Mou. Horses started galloping at full speed. His qi had invaded the entire atmosphere. The Qi Xie armored horses were moving forwards and galloping on the corpses of the people from Lai Yun and on the bodies of those still alive, killing them on the way. In the end, nobody survived and Lin Feng's sword kept moving towards Mou. Chapter 712, Bloodbath in Mou. The armored horses were still galloping at full speed. A cloud of dust was floating in the air around them as the ground was shaking beneath them. After having destroyed the troops from Lai Yun, the Duanren city troops continued moving forwards into the territory of Mou. People were running away terrified when they saw that army approaching. In the air was a gigantic ferocious wild beast. It was a ferocious ancient animal and it was bright red like fire with gigantic wings. Each time it clapped its wings, it could travel across a kilometer, creating a hurricane all around. Lin Feng and Lu Fei were on the back of that beast and remained silent. Lin Feng looked as cold as before and it seemed like that ice chi could cover an area of hundreds of kilometers. They were gazing into the distance but there were no troops from Mou anymore. They had heard that on the day before, the troops from Mou were still there but now they had disappeared as if they knew Lin Feng was coming. Someone had probably told them that Lin Feng was coming. Lin Feng was convinced that all of that was a conspiracy. Someone had plotted against Lu Zhanglan, the Duanren city troops and someone was still plotting against Lin Feng. Lin Feng firmly believed that those who were plotting were the people from the imperial city. Only people like that could do something that big. Whistling sounds kept spreading in the air at the same tempo as the wings of the winged tiger. They kept moving deeper into the territory of the country of Mou. In front of Lin Feng appeared a gigantic mountain chain. That mountain chain was extremely dangerous and filled with a terrifying death energy. A terrifying black energy rose up in the air. It seemed like that terrifying black energy was filled with demons. Lin Feng looked at the mountain chain. That black fog could easily hide an entire army. Maybe there was an illusion inside. What a terrifying corpse and blood chi. How many people's lives are required to create such an illusion, thought Lin Feng, and then said, I will enter alone, Qi Qiong, and you can stay here. Then, the winged tiger stopped in the air. Lin Feng had immediately jumped into the black energy. His strength of the Haruka started rotating in his body. He was surrounded by a golden light illuminating the world, delivering sentient beings from suffering. Evil energies couldn't compete with that golden light. The black fog even moved aside. Evil was afraid of that pure and holy light. Lu Fei was astonished to see Lin Feng's body turn golden. Lin Feng could turn into a golden Buddha against which evil couldn't do anything. How incredible. Lin Feng's body was surrounded by a magnificent golden light. He was penetrating deeper and deeper into that black fog. He continued chanting some mantras in Sanskrit as golden Sanskrit letters were moving out of his mouth. Golden hands kept bombarding the atmosphere, and then horrible shrieks spread in the air. The black fog had weakened. A terrifying sword light then appeared. Lin Feng transformed into an authentic golden Shakyamuni, and he was releasing monstrous amounts of sword energies. Lin Feng's soul was extremely strong, but Lin Feng was realizing that the black mountain chain was like an endless black hole. He didn't know how deep it was. In any case, if it was an illusion, it couldn't be controlled by a simple soldier of Mou. Die, shouted Lin Feng furiously. An infinite amount of sword chi lacerated the evil chi. Lin Feng was moving at the speed of sounds, but that evil chi was becoming more and more powerful as he got deeper. Some roaring sound spread in the air. An evil chi turned into a zombie dragon which emitted whistling sounds in the air. It opened its gigantic mouth, unveiling its putrid cavity. It wanted to swallow Lin Feng. Lin Feng didn't stop chanting his mantras in Sanskrit though, and the golden letters kept crashing onto the zombie dragon, gradually ripping it apart. The body of the dragon was progressively losing its strength. However, with those bones, the dragon didn't have any sensation of pain. It kept moving towards Lin Feng without fault. Lin Feng jumped forwards and into the mouth of the gigantic dragon. His golden body didn't fear evil energies. The dragon swallowed Lin Feng in one bite, but then Lin Feng released a monstrous amount of sword light which cut through everything and destroyed the dragon. Lin Feng didn't stop after having destroyed the dragon. He continued diving into the depths of the mountain chain, bombarding the illusion with his golden body. His sword light also continued lacerating his surroundings until he completely destroyed the illusion. However, in front of him there was still an incredible amount of terrifying chi and many zombie dragons filled with evil chi. The illusion is not so big, it cannot harm me, but it wants to stop me, thought Lin Feng coldly. His golden light then progressively transformed and turned black. It turned into an evil energy. Lin Feng turned into a demon. Yiksha, Azura, an indestructible demon, said the demon as three demons appeared. The Azura was opening the way, the Yiksha was releasing killer energy, and the indestructible demon kept destroying the illusion in front of them. Lin Feng was moving extremely fast. That illusion was extremely strange. It seemed like it was endless. Even though Lin Feng kept destroying it, he couldn't see the end. Time, Lin Feng was pulling a long face. He had no time. He then rose in the air and raised his bloodthirsty sword. He released some level 5 sword intent. His sword descended from the sky. The evil chi was cut into two and the atmosphere divided itself. I arrived, thought Lin Feng suddenly. He was speechless. He had arrived at the end. He followed the road he had created with his sword. The infinity of corpse chi disappeared and a big road appeared in the mountain chain. There were many corpses on that road. In front of Lin Feng was a hill. In the middle of that hill was a huge crowd. The troops from Mou were all there. The people in the hill were all wearing the clothes of high-ranking military officials. Actually, and they also had 3 bodies as trophies: Lu Tsanglan, Ren Qingquang and Feng Yuhan. Lin Feng looked emotionless as he released a terrifying ice energy. The troops looked at Lin Feng. How brave. Surprisingly, he had come alone and had managed to destroy the illusion. How strong. Die, said Lin Feng, raising his bloodthirsty sword in the sky. The terrifying sword could destroy the earth and sky, it seemed. Its chi astonished the crowd, they looked terrified. That sword chi was terrifying. Die. His bloodthirsty sword then descended from the sky. It seemed like the atmosphere was cut into 2. An infinite number of small red lights appeared and crashed onto the hill. Blood splashed and gushed out of the mountain. With one sword, Lin Feng had killed a massive number of people. With only one sword, Lin Feng had managed to make the army of Mou panic-stricken. What was going on? That young man was terrifying. How could he kill so many people in one attack? Lin Feng didn't care about them. He raised his sword again as red lights like blood appeared again, and then his sword descended from the sky. An infinite number of horrible shrieks spread in the air at the same tempo as blood was gushing ceaselessly. The troops of Mou were actually scared to death. What was going on? A group of cultivators of the Xian Qi layer threw themselves at Lin Feng, but Lin Feng raised his hand and slashed the atmosphere with it. All those people died in a flash. All those cultivators of the Xian Qi layer had been unable to withstand a single attack. They were terrified and panic-stricken. How could such a thing happen? Where was the mystical cultivator of Mou? Boom, boom, boom. The ground was shaking as a cloud of dust was flying in the air above the mountain chain. The troops from Shuiyu were also arriving. The illusion had disappeared, so it was easy to come. Lin Feng had wasted too much time because of the illusion. The troops felt even more courageous and full of courage and vitality once they saw Lin Feng hacking away at the enemy troops. Die, shouted Lin Feng in a terrifying voice. When the Qi Xie troops continued to trample on their enemies' dead bodies as they rode into battle, Lin Feng kept moving forwards while the high-ranking military officials kept moving backwards. Lin Feng, stop, said someone on the side of Mou. That voice was familiar. Lin Feng was a bit surprised. He raised his head and saw a young man whose face looked hideous. Chapter 713, The Crown Prince of Mou, Wuxia. Lin Feng was stupefied. He had already met that person. It was the Crown Prince of Mou. He was an incredible genius who was really difficult to defeat. He had only lost in Duanren City against Lin Feng back then. However, even though it was only Wuxia's silhouette, the voice sounded very similar. Your Highness the Crown Prince, said those terrified troops from Mou. It seemed like a hero had come to save some insignificant people. Wuxia made a step forwards and penetrated into the hill. He then looked at Lin Feng coldly and said, Lin Feng, it's me. A subtle sound spread in the air as Wuxia took off the mask on his face. The crowd was absolutely astonished. Had the Crown Prince of Mou Wuxia always been wearing a mask? The high-ranking officials from Mou weren't surprised though. They had already seen Wuxia's mask. The young man in front of them was their real prince. However, Lin Feng was even more surprised at that moment. He was staring at that person, Wuxia. A few words slowly came out of Lin Feng's mouth, Yun. Fei. Yang. The Crown Prince of Mou was surprisingly the one who had gone to meet Sheng with them and had participated at the great competition of Shuiyu as a genius. Yun Fei Yang. And on top of that he had become one of Lin Feng's great friends. He was the Crown Prince of Mou. No wonder nobody knew who he was in Shuiyu. No wonder he had said that he was from Duanren City, and no wonder Lin Feng hadn't recognized him with his real face. It's me, Lin Feng. I am the Crown Prince of Mou, Wuxia. But I have another name, Yun Fei Yang, said Yun Fei Yang looking glum. The people of both countries were astonished, even the high-ranking military officials of Mou. Lin Feng and Mo Jia knew each other. Their crown prince had finished 10th at the great competition of Shuiyu. He was extremely strong, he could definitely protect them. The general and the 2 officers can't have died for nothing, you killed them, said Lin Feng while glaring at Yunfei Yang in an ice-cold way before adding, they died because of you, so you will die too. Lin Feng had become one of Yunfei Yang's great friends. However, because of Yunfei Yang, Lu Conglan had died. How could they remain friends? If I did it, I am willing to bear the responsibility and die, said Yunfei Yang looking glum. Back then, during the war, he had seen that Lin Feng and Lu Conglan were good friends and then his general had killed him. No need to kill them, said Yunfei Yang coldly while pointing at the high-ranking military officials, their hearts were pounding. They had the feeling that Yunfei Yang was quite weak in front of their prince. It seemed like Yunfei Yang was sure he was going to die in Lin Feng's hands. Step, Yunfei Yang jumped forwards and arrived in front of the 3 hanging corpses. He looked at Lu Conglan and then immediately knelt down onto the ground. Everybody was astonished. Yunfei Yang was prostrating himself in front of the corpse, his head was frenetically bombarding the ground emitting bumping sounds. He then raised his head, blood was flowing on his forehead, we have been at war for 20 years and now you died in the hands of the troops of Mou. Please forgive me. Then Yunfei Yang prostrated himself once again very violently, his head brutally crashed onto the ground. I am ridiculous, I left the country and then told the general to help me. Even though you refused, I still wanted to forget the misery of the last years. And now the result is tragic. Please forgive me. Then Yunfei Yang was prostrating himself again. Because of me, the general and 2 officers died. Many troops were killed and injured, it is my fault, please forgive me. Yunfei Yang then slowly stood up and cut the ropes on the corpses that were hanging, he then carefully grabbed the corpses and put them down on the ground, flat. Yunfei Yang then moved in front of Lin Feng again and some letters appeared in his hand, they were all written by different hands. One handwriting was Mo Jia's. The other handwriting style was Lu Conglan's. Yunfei Yang and Uncle Lu had been writing to each other just like Yunfei Yang had said, they had made friends. They had been talking about everything together. Yunfei Yang had proposed to Lu Conglan to leave Shuiyu and become the general of a big army in Mou. They would have then tried to invade Shuiyu together and Lu Conglan would have been at the top of the operations. Lu Conglan had refused though without explaining why. Lin Feng, this is the last letter I received. He must have written those words before his death. Unfortunately, I went and hid to practice cultivation, if I hadn't confined myself he might not have died, said Yunfei Yang handing over a letter to Lin Feng. Lin Feng opened it and saw some words written with blood. Mo Jia, no, this time I will call you Yunfei Yang. This might be the last letter you'll get from me. I made friends with Lin Feng and you are both geniuses. I am happy with what I did in this life, it wasn't in vain. I refused your offer many times, it wasn't because of Shuiyu because I have stopped believing in Shuiyu a long time ago. However, I have many brothers in Duanren City, they would have hated me if I had betrayed them. They would have been fighting all those years for nothing, the only thing that would change the situation would be if I died. Fei Yang, after reading that letter, if you have the opportunity, talk to Lin Feng for me. If someone can see those letters, it has to be Lin Feng. What I wrote in them is what I want to tell Lin Feng, little Feng, if you ever see that letter, it means that I am already dead. Don't have doubts about Yunfei Yang, my death has nothing to do with him. The people who killed me are not from Mou, people from Mou cannot kill me so don't kill them. Those who killed me are from Shuiyu. Little Feng, don't try to avenge me but do your best so that my brothers don't die worthlessly. Please take care of Fei Fei, that is my most important request. Lin Feng was shivering, Shuiyu had killed Lu Conglan. Lin Feng rose up in the air and handed the letter to Lu Fei, is it Uncle Lu's handwriting? Lu Fei lowered her head and looked at the letter, she started shaking violently. It is my father's handwriting, no doubt, said Lu Fei with a trembling voice. Shui Yu had killed her father. Lin Feng, I will explain everything to you, said Yun Fei Yang. He then looked at the troops from Mou, his eyes were twinkling as he said, where is Mo Feng? They looked left and right and were shaking. The chief commander of Mou, Mo Feng, wasn't there. Mo Feng, get your ass over here, said Yun Fei Yang coldly, glancing at the crowd. In a flash, a silhouette rose up in the sky. That person was wearing a normal armor, that person was the incredible chief commander of Mou, Mo Feng. Your Highness, said Mo Feng landing on the hill and bowing calmly. When did you start betraying Mou? Asked Yun Fei Yang coldly. Mo Feng smiled and shook his head, you have personally come here, Your Highness. I have no way to escape, so I will probably die. I can tell you the truth, about 5 years. For which Shui Yu person are you working for? Asked Yun Fei Yang. You've been betraying us for 5 years. Because of you, people from Duanren City, people from Mou and people from Liyun have been dying unceasingly. Who in Shui Yu is so cruel and so heartless to make you do such things? Who started such a diabolic plan such a long time ago? Who is able to calculate so far in the future? Chapter 714, The Rock. Incredibly, the crown prince of Mou was Mo Jia, also known as Yun Fei Yang. He had lost in Duanren City in the past, and one reason for all those defeats was Mo Feng had betrayed Mou. When Yun Fei Yang wasn't there, Mo Feng used to be the chief commander of Mou. Mo Feng had been on Yun Fei Yang's side for 5 years. Because of that stratagem, Lu Zhonglan and 2 other officers had died. On top of that, many of Lu Zhonglan's troops had been injured or killed. However, Shui Yu didn't care because they didn't appreciate Lu Zhonglan, and in any case Lu Zhonglan's army didn't belong to Shui Yu. Shui Yu wanted Lu Zhonglan to die. They had always wanted to eradicate Duanren City from the map. Because of that stratagem, people from Liyun and Mou had also died in huge quantities. The only entity which could be at the origin of such a thing was Shui Yu. Shui Yu had sent some elite forces which couldn't be blocked by Mou and Liyun, and they had killed people from both countries. In the end, they had killed 2 birds with 1 stone. How wonderful. Lin Feng was fixedly staring at Mo Feng. He had already guessed that someone evil was behind such a plan. What a disgusting person. Speak, said Yun Fei Yang while jumping forwards. He then raised his hands, which immediately landed on Mo Feng's shoulders. Some crackling sound spread in the air. His shoulders were broken, however, Mo Feng was still smiling. Your Highness, I have no choice but to admit that you are extremely talented and gifted. No matter if we're talking about intelligence or cultivation, you are a genius. You will become a hero, however, compared with him you still have much to do. Even in times of peace and prosperity, he will become an incredible hero, but you are not cruel enough, you don't have enough hatred in your body, said Mo Feng slowly. He then closed his eyes and said, Your Highness, kill me, I deserve it. Yun Fei Yang looked pale and cold. He wanted to kill Mo Feng. He then raised his hand, he was about to kill him. Wait, said Lin Feng. Yun Fei Yang's hand stopped in the air, he then turned his head around and looked at Lin Feng. You think that we will avenge the death of a few hundreds of thousands of troops with your life? You are a worthless dog. You're ridiculous. Die. No, you are too trivial, said Lin Feng coldly. Mo Feng's face changed. He raised his hand, he wanted to kill himself, but Lin Feng appeared in front of him and his hand crashed onto his body. In a flash, his cultivation was crippled. You wish you had died, said Lin Feng coldly. Immediately after, Mo Feng had the impression he had no strength in his legs anymore. Then Lin Feng grabbed his feet and hung him upside down where the general and the 2 other corpses had been hung. Every member of the Duanren City troops will shoot an arrow at you, but you will not die. Your blood will flow until the final moment. said Lin Feng in an evil way. Mo Feng kept shaking. He was hanging by the feet and arrows kept crashing onto his body. Blood kept flowing. Lin Feng was more cruel than he was. He finally started shaking with fear. It seemed like he was finally releasing how cruel Lin Feng was and how important his offense had been. Yun Fei Yang slowly turned around and looked at the general of Mou. "Didn't I tell you not to attack anymore and not to do anything to Duanren City?" asked Yun Fei Yang coldly. They all started shaking. They finally understood what had happened. Mo Feng had betrayed the country and had used them. He had used the national troops to betray the country. They knew that their prince was furious at that moment. "Did I not tell you that Lu Zhonglan was the general that I respected the most and that you had to respect him, that you couldn't harm him?" said Yun Fei Yang again. The high-ranking militaries from Mou were shaking and walking backwards. They could feel that their prince's anger. They had thought that Yun Fei Yang would just come and save them, but at that moment, he was blaming them. "You forgot everything I said. You even joined hands with Lai Yun to attack Duanren City and caused a massive amount of blood to flow. You disrespected the general and even hung his body. You violated my orders. Should you be executed or not?" "Your Highness, we receive Mo Feng's orders, please forgive us," said some people while kneeling down. The prince of Mou, Mo Jie, was as stubborn as a mountain. Nobody dared violate his orders. He was known for his firmness. If anyone violated his orders, they would die. Yun Fei Yang raised his head and sighed. "I taught you everything you know, you are all here thanks to me and now you will die." Yun Fei Yang then started stepping on the ground violently and a terrifying physical strength oppressed those people. Blood started splashing. That group of high-ranking military officials then groaned together and collapsed. They were all dead. Lin Feng looked at Yun Fei Yang and turned his head around as said to Lu Fei, "Lu Fei, read those letters for the troops too please." Lu Fei looked at Lin Feng and nodded. She then did her best to read the letters as clearly and loudly as possible without crying. When Lu Fei finished reading the letter, no matter who, the troops of Mou or Duanren City, they were all moved. Mo Jie initially wanted to forget everything that had happened all those years, but then Xueyu had plotted against them. The troops of Duanren City raised their heads towards the sky. They looked calm and solemn. Xueyu had killed their general and wanted them to die. How tragic. "Help me to take care of them," said Lin Feng to Yun Fei Yang. Those troops couldn't stay in Xueyu. It was an enemy territory for them. Lin Feng wanted to hand over those troops to Mou. What a joke. "No," said Yun Fei Yang while shaking his head. He then continued, "Those are your troops, you must be responsible for them. If Xueyu is against you, you must have them with you. I must hurry back to Xueyu. Their ultimate goal isn't that army, but me," said Lin Feng while shaking his head and sighing. He wasn't strong enough to resist against everybody. "Rock!" shouted Yun Fei Yang extremely loudly. The earth and the sky started shaking violently. In the distance, it seemed like the sky was going to cave it. A gigantic silhouette appeared in the sky with enormous wings. It was slowly coming towards them. People had a feeling of oppression. It seemed like that thing was as big as the sky. "Is that a beast?" wondered some people while staring at that silhouette in the sky. That silhouette was way too big. It seemed like it was 1 kilometer wide from where they were. Boom boom boom. People's hearts were pounding, their legs were weak. A terrifying hurricane started blowing. They were about to fall. Many people actually fell down on their bottom. Finally, a terrifying beast appeared. Its pupils looked ice cold. It was an ancient beast from primeval times. Its wings were a few kilometers wide when opened. It could blot out the sky and cover up in the earth all by itself. It looked like a gigantic castle. "This is the totem of Mou. The rock." People from Mou were astonished. It was the rock, the emblem of their country. There were many rumors about it in Mou, but people didn't know if it existed. Apparently, the rumors were true. Lin Feng was astonished too. he had never seen such a terrifying beast. It is the emblem of my country, Mou. Only in cases of extreme national danger can we use it. Since I came back from the great competition of Shuiyu, I recognized the rock as the protector of our country and oldest ancestor. Now, I want to help you for the general, for the blood of the troops, and for you yourself. Yun Fei Yang sounded calm and solemn. He was speaking slowly. Lin Feng remained silent for a moment and nodded. Shuiyu was so cruel, he didn't need to care about them anymore. Rock, sorry for getting you involved, said Yun Fei Yang while bowing in front of the rock. The rock shook its wings, it appeared above the ground again, they couldn't see the sky anymore. It looked like a gigantic celestial object. The rock then landed on the sky. 10,000 Qi Xie troops could easily stand on its back. Chapter 7:15, The Wedding Day. Lin Feng, take the Qi Xie troops and their horses with you. The rock can bring you back to Shuiyu, said Yun Fei Yang. Lin Feng nodded and looked at the troops while saying, soldiers, come with me to the imperial city, we will fly on the back of the rock. If you don't want to, just leave alone, otherwise we will avenge the general. Of course we want to come, how could we forget our general, said the Duanren troops. All of them led their horse onto the back of the rock. They all looked cold. Lin Feng, master, what should we do with the corpses, asked someone. Lin Feng made a step forwards, he looked at Lu Zhanglan's body and then at Lu Fei without saying anything. But then he spoke because Lu Fei didn't say anything. What do you want to do? Asked Lin Feng to Lu Fei. She was Lu Zhanglan's daughter, she could, of course, decide. I will bring them back and incinerate them between Duanren border and Duanren city, they were at home there. I will then spread their ashes in the valley. They will always pay attention to that road then, said Lu Fei looking extremely sad. Her father had always protected Duanren city and Duanren border. Lin Feng had no objection and nodded, all right, I will come back when I'm done and I will pray for their souls. Don't worry about me, Lin Feng. You can leave, said Lu Fei smiling, she had tears in her eyes. Lin Feng sighed, the beauty she had on her face back then had disappeared, she looked mature yet crushed. Lin Feng slightly nodded and caressed Lu Fei's head, it made her shiver. Lin Feng didn't dare spend too much time there though. He asked a few cultivators of the Xian Qi layer to stay there and carry the 3 corpses. Then he jumped onto his winged tiger and landed on the back of the rock. It seemed like that plot was also against him. Besides, his wedding was about to start, so he had to hurry and go back. Even though he didn't feel good, he had to act as if nothing had happened. It wasn't a good feeling. The rock spread its incredible wide wings. They then immediately rose up in the air, they were flying at an altitude of several dozens of thousands of meters. The rock was clapping its gigantic wings and creating hurricanes and whistling sounds all around them. The rock was carrying an army. People would have been astonished if they had seen that. A beast which could carry dozens of thousands of beasts. That was incredible. There were people all over its gigantic body. Yun Fei Yang looked at those people leave. His troops then moved back into the depths of Mou. Lu Fei and the few cultivators of the Xian Qi layer whom Lin Feng had left there went back to Duanren city with the corpses. They were going to carry out the funeral rite for those dead people. Very quickly, the sky became dark. Nothing was left at night in the gigantic mountain chain. Nothing except corpse Qi. It didn't know where to go. In the darkness of the night, there were 5 black fingers. There were subtle sounds spreading in the air too. Suddenly, a black silhouette appeared. That black silhouette was almost invisible in the darkness of the night. Apart from 2 dazzling eyes twinkling here and there, nobody would have been able to see anything. That black silhouette was in the sky and released a terrifying and evil physical strength. That person's black clothes moved and a terrifying vortex appeared. In a flash, the corpse chi which was still present in the mountain was sucked in by the vortex. All that was left was some smoke. That mountain still had people a few hours before the corpse chi had disappeared into the sky. The chi of the people who had died unjustly satisfied that person. He was absorbing it like a glutton. How pleasant, said that person in an evil way. That person looked particularly evil. Corpse chi was really delicious to some. After a while, the integrity of the pure chi disappeared into his body and he disappeared as if nothing had ever happened. The leaves were rustling in the lovesickness forest. Lin Hai and Yu Menghe raised their heads up to the sky and looked a bit worried. That day was Lin Feng's wedding day. Little Feng hasn't come back yet. What can we do? Said Yu Menghe in a low voice. Everybody was looking forward to seeing the wedding ceremony. Everybody was ready, but Lin Feng had gone to Duanren City and hadn't come back. Lin Hai frowned. Those days, the city had been quite calm, especially on the side of the imperial palace. Lin Hai felt a bit nervous because of that. The princess was going to get married, so how come the palace had been so calm? Let's continue to prepare everything. Lin Feng will come back, said Yu Menghe, putting on her favorite Changxiam. She looked incredible beautiful. She had even put on some makeup on which made her look even more beautiful. Even if he doesn't come back today, Xianyi and I will still be Lin Feng's wives. Yu Menghe turned around and saw Meng Qing's magnificent smile. Even though her son was incredibly outstanding, he was also very lucky to have two beautiful wives. That was incredible and wonderful. Lin Hai, go and prepare everything, said Yu Menghe. Lin Hai nodded and went to the imperial palace. Even though the imperial palace was calm, the imperial city was still filled with activity and noise. People had invaded restaurants and hotels. There were also many people on the roads. There were people everywhere, especially on the road between the lovesickness forest and the imperial palace, as if people had been expecting something. Lin Feng's wedding was going to start. Lin Feng was the champion of the great competition of Shuiyu and the new ruler of Shuiyu. On top of that, he was going to get married with the princess of Shuiyu. They had to stay on that road. Lin Feng would come from there. Lin Feng is so strong and powerful. He won the great competition of Shuiyu and is now the ruler of Shuiyu. And he's going to get married with the beautiful princess. Lin Feng will definitely become a unique ruler and monarch of the country, said some people on the road. Lin Feng was their idol, they worshipped him. They had hoped that one day, they would become like Lin Feng. Coming from a small town or village didn't mean that they couldn't rise. Lin Feng had proved it to them. He had become the most dazzling young man of the country. You imagine. Lin Feng is the ruler of Shuiyu, the patriarch of the strongest sect of the country, the Yunhai sect. And his parents are two of the four most outstanding cultivators our country had 20 years ago. Besides, he had monstrous natural abilities. Shuiyu is already his. Nobody can surpass him. In a few years, he will have a terrifying strength, said someone else. At that moment, a young man in black clothes was drinking alcohol in a restaurant. That person could hear what people outside were saying as he interrupted. The Imperial City clan should first let him to do that. Will they allow Lin Feng to become the unique ruler of the country? Many people were surprised when they heard that person. People had never thought about those questions. Did the Imperial City clan agree with Lin Feng's abrupt rise? Chapter 7:16 Dark clouds in the sky. Dark clouds were rolling in the sky above Shuiyu. They were covering the entire country. Many people in the Imperial City were raising their heads and looking at the dark clouds. What a gloomy chi! Progressively, rays of sunlight were disappearing, the atmosphere was losing its colors. Besides, with those clouds was also an extremely strong wind which contained an ice-cold chi. What a mysterious weather, thought the crowd. It seemed like Lin Feng's wedding date wasn't bringing him luck. He had chosen such a gloomy day. At that moment, the troops of the Yunhai sect which hadn't gone to Duanren city were there ready to welcome Lin Feng. There were also some ferocious wild beasts with them. When people saw them and heard the sound of the steps of that gigantic army, they moved aside on both sides of the road. On Lin Feng's wedding day, his army had to show up. He really deserved to be the ruler of Shuiyu. However, Lin Feng was missing from the picture. "Who's that girl? She's so beautiful," thought the crowd while looking at a girl in Cheongsam. She was sitting in palanquin chair. Everyone was staring at her. How beautiful. Too beautiful. She looked pure and holy, like a goddess. However, she was wearing the clothes of a bride, which meant she was taken. Men but also women were looking at that incredibly beautiful woman and couldn't take their eyes off her. Their hearts were pounding. That kind of beautiful woman made the world seem colorless. That kind of girl didn't belong to the mortal world, she belonged to the world of deities. By getting married, she was going to join the world of common women. Many people were dreaming of having her as a wife. If they could have her as a wife for one day, they would agree to die on the second. She must be the girl from the rumors, the one Lin Feng loves the most. She's even more beautiful than the princess. Lin Feng is the ruler of Shuiyu, but he can also be happy with his love situation, sighed the crowd. Their eyes couldn't move away from that beauty. Meng Qing raised her head and looked at the dark clouds. She stopped smiling for a second and then smiled again. She was Lin Feng's wife from that day on. She didn't care about the weather or the sun. She was happy with her situation. The crowd was welcoming her, following them. Step by step, people were following the others. However, Lin Feng was still absent. Many people were surprised. If Lin Feng didn't come, how would the wedding happen? The imperial palace was as calm as before. It was oppressive. The gloomy weather made the atmosphere look even scarier. There were guards at the gate of the imperial city, nothing else. There was nobody in the main fields and public squares of the city either. All the places of the city were extremely calm. Boom, boom, boom. It seemed like the ground was shaking and was going to break. In the distance, something was coming, and was breaking the oppressive silence which reigned over the city. However, the crowd in the city didn't care about it. The guards just gazed into the distance indifferently and then looked at their own things again. It seemed like they had seen nothing at all. Boom, boom, boom. The ground was shaking more and more intensely. In the distance, there was an army with a stone ape. It was 3 meters high and looked like a castle. Each of its steps made the ground shake. It was astonishing. It could easily crush several people with its feet. Behind the stone ape was an army which was extremely long. On both sides and behind there were people following them. However, their faces looked unsure when they arrived outside of the imperial palace. The weather was really horrible and cold. It seemed like something was about to happen. What they had in front of their eyes looked strange and scary. It was the princess' wedding though, they had to be there. The atmosphere around the imperial palace looked extremely cold. Nobody was welcoming anyone, as if nobody knew what was happening, nobody that it was a special day. Finally, after some time, some sounds emerged in the atmosphere. It seemed like the atmosphere was resonating. Very quickly, in the palace several silhouettes appeared, and finally the people of the imperial palace could be seen. Those people were wearing dragon robes and looked extraordinary. They were wearing the same clothes Shi Huan and Shi Qiong used to wear. They looked majestic and imposing. It proved that those people had an extremely high social status. They were imperial snow dragon guards. They were all cultivators of the Xian Qi layer. Imperial snow dragon guards, thought the crowd when they saw those people. Lin Feng had risen in the country, he had defeated the high officials, he had killed Shi Huan and Shi Qiong. It wasn't a secret anymore. People in Shuiyu knew that there were some incredibly strong cultivators who were called the Imperial Snow Dragons of Shuiyu. However, why were they there to welcome the crowd? They were the most mysterious troops of the country. The huge gates of the imperial palace opened themselves and the guards knelt down in front of the imperial snow dragon guards in an extremely respectful way. They didn't dare say anything. A group of people slowly came out. There were 4 people, 1 in the front and 3 in the back. They were all wearing dragon robes, but they were different from those other people. However, one had to pay attention to notice the difference. There were 9 groups of snow dragon guards and all of them had a leader wearing a silver badge. At that moment, the 3 people who had come out held golden badges. Those who had silver badges were officers like Shi Huan. Those who had golden badges were commanders. There were 3 commanders and in front of them, and there was a young man who looked extremely aggressive and violent. That young man was releasing the chi of a warlord. Crown Prince, Duan Wu Dao. The crowd was stupefied looking at the Crown Prince, Duan Wu Dao. If one was good to him, he was merciful, if one offended him, he would kill. Lin Feng had finished first at the great competition of Shuiyu and Duan Wu Dao had finished second. Boom boom boom. The ground broke and some long crevices appeared. The stone ape stopped and the crowd behind it as well. Slash slash slash. Some silhouettes flickered and some Chong Paos fluttered in the wind unceasingly. Everywhere, people kept arrived. There was an infinite number of people. Those people were wearing clothes of different colors, some were even wearing armor. After that crowd appeared, they immediately surrounded everybody else. What's going on? Some people were surprised. What was happening? That was supposed to be Lin Feng's wedding day. They had come to assist to the wedding. What was happening? They were suddenly being surrounded and there was a terrifying chi in the atmosphere. Does Shuiyu want to attack Lin Feng? Thought the crowd while shaking. Was Duan Xinyi going to marry Lin Feng? What a huge joke. That was impossible. Duan Xinyi was the most beautiful girl in Shuiyu. Duan Wu Dao had finished second at the great competition of Shuiyu and Lin Feng first. On top of that, Lin Feng had become the ruler of Shuiyu. He had the same status as the king. Could the imperial palace of Shuiyu really accept such a thing? Chapter 717, The Great War. The king was a megalomaniac. Could he allow someone to be his equal in his own country? No matter what, even if Dragon Mountain had decided it, they couldn't allow Lin Feng to be as strong as the king. The king had told the entire country that Lin Feng was going to get married with Duan Xinyi because he wanted everybody to assist with their wedding. But actually, it seemed like he wanted to execute Lin Feng in front of everybody. Maybe he wanted to show everybody what it would be like to want too much power. However, the most surprising thing, in the crowd's eyes, was that nobody was reacting. It seemed like they hadn't anticipated that the situation would be like that. Yu Menghe didn't look surprised at all. Yu Menghe wasn't surprised and nobody else was surprised around her. She was just looking at those people releasing their chi. It seemed like a great war was about to start. What a terrifying army, thought the crowd. However, those people who were in the center were panic-stricken and started running around insanely. Such things had nothing to do with them, they had just come to assist to the wedding. They were guests. It seemed like nobody had planned such a situation. Now there were sharp arrows pointing at them. It seemed like they could die at any moment. All those who have nothing to do with this can piss off, said Duan Wu Dao extremely aggressively. Some silhouettes flickered and people disappeared far away in the distance. The imperial city was going to attack them. Lin Feng had made the Yunhai sect rise, he had destroyed the Yu clan and the Wanshou sect. Now the imperial city wanted to destroy the Yunhai sect. And the Lovesickness Forest? The Yunhai sect and the Lovesickness Forest had become too influential in the country, even for the imperial city. Destroying those 2 spheres of influence wouldn't be that easy, otherwise, Duan Wu Dao would have done it alone with his snow dragon guards. Yu Menghe slowly walked forwards and looked at Duan Wu Dao. She then said coldly, "You really have no integrity. You first accepted to let the princess get married with my son and now you refused and plot against him. You have no moral values. You don't even care about giving face to the princess. The imperial city didn't care about the princess, they were using her as a toy. You call yourselves kings, but if you were defeated, you would be considered as bandits. You're just a motley crowd. Lin Feng could marry the princess in your dreams only, but you dream too much, said Duan Wudao aggressively. He then raised his hand and made a sign meaning that the archers could shoot arrows. Roar! The stone ape roared violently and hit his chest with its gigantic hands. It then started running and the ground started shaking. The other beasts also started moving. The gigantic snake and all the others were moving at full speed. Release, said Duan Wudao. All the arrows then crossed the sky and moved towards the group of people of the Yunhai sect. Slash slash slash. The atmosphere was shaking. The stone ape was moving towards the arrows which crashed onto his body, but nothing happened. In a few steps, the stone ape arrived in front of the group of attackers. Some horrible shrieks spread in the air and those who had just shot the arrows died. Roar! The stone ape then roared violently and terrifying whistling sounds made them flew away. Blood even splashed out of people's 7 apertures, nose, ears, eyes, mouth. The snake also arrived in front of the crowd and after avoiding 2 arrows, it hit the crowd with its gigantic tail. A terrifying venom spread in the air and nobody could stop that venom. Only a few people of the Yunhai sect were killed by those arrows. Those archers weren't strong enough. However, Duan Wudao remained expressionless and calm. In a flash, the Imperial Snow Dragon Guards released a terrifying pure chi at the same time, then they all jumped towards Lin Feng's people. At the same time, behind them appeared some extremely strong cultivators. They were all cultivators of the Xian Qi layer and were terrifying. Where are those extremely strong cultivators from? Thought the crowd baffled. They had extremely powerful skills and techniques. The people of the Yunhai sect were ordinary people, they would be easy to kill. What a tragic moment. Go and fight against the beasts, said Duan Wudao. Then the 3 commanders of the Snow Dragon Guards flickered at the same time and they threw themselves at the beasts. The 3 commanders were all cultivators who had at least broken through to the 7th Xian Qi layer. The dark clouds were still blotting out the sky and covering up the earth. It was supposed to be Lin Feng and Duan Xin Ye's wedding. Now it was turning out to be a terrifying event. Murder and desolation had invaded the atmosphere. Lin Feng still hasn't arrived. What a tragedy for the Lovesickness Forest and the Yunhai sect, thought the crowd. The Imperial City clan was much stronger and had a monstrous amount of cultivators of the Xian Qi layer. The strongest cultivators of Shuiyu, the Snow Dragon Guards, were even attacking. The Yunhai sect and the Lovesickness Forest were going to disappear. When is Duan Renhuang coming? Asked Yu Menghe coldly to Duan Wudao. He's not needed to fight against you, said Duan Wudao indifferently. He then released a terrifying and brutal energy. Make Lin Feng come here for a battle, said Duan Wudao, whose battle energy was burning violently all around him. Last time, he had lost against Lin Feng and felt incredibly humiliated. You are a loser, you cannot fight against him. Humph, Duan Renhuang was the first one and it's been 20 years since. Even if Duan Renhuang doesn't come out, I can still defeat you, you have no geniuses, said Duan Wudao while releasing a terrifying qi. He was looking at those people fighting and said, everybody stop and move back. His terrifying voice rolled in the air and resonated in people's heads. Everybody immediately moved back. There was blood and corpses already where the people of the Yunhai sect and the Lovesickness were. Back then, people called you and your husband geniuses, now you are pieces of trash. Yu Menghe, I will kill you with my own hands and then kill your son Lin Feng, shouted Duan Wudao furiously. Sealed doors, appear. In the air, 8 sealed doors appeared. Duan Wudao could use the power of his spirit to oppress Yu Menghe. He needed to regain face and now he had the opportunity to do so. Roar. A celestial fang spirit appeared. Yu Menghe, like Duan Wudao, released her dragon spirit. She also had the 9 dragon spirit. Her spirit had 8 heads and looked hideous. You want to fight, all your people will die, said Duan Wudao. Doors, seal. The 8 doors then turned into beams of light as they moved towards Yu Menghe. Her 8 dragon heads then roared furiously and crashed onto the 8 doors while explosions sounded. The doors were oppressing all those heads and it seemed like they were going to be sealed. Duan Wudao made a step forwards and a terrifying warlord energy oppressed Yu Menghe. Warlord punch, shouted Duan Wudao furiously. His warlord fists then dashed to the skies. It seemed like Yu Menghe was too weak and was going to be crushed. Yu Menghe's hands were fluttering, it looked mysterious and fascinating. She looked fragile and sweet. At the same time, the warlord punches seemed like they couldn't break her fists. Such a vast chi is indestructible, die, shouted Duan Wudao furiously. Some terrifying whistling sounds spread in the air, those strident sounds painfully pierced through people's ears. A terrifying warlord chi was bombarding the atmosphere in Yu Menghe's direction. Duan Wudao's skills were extremely brutal and violent. Besides, he had joined the Jade Heaven Imperial family and felt more powerful than ever. He despised everybody in the world. Chapter 718, Fury and Revenge. Duan Wudao is terrifying, thought the crowd when they saw his warlord punches. He had broken through to the 9th Xian Qi layer, with his sealed doors spirit and Shengong skills, he had a terrifying power. However, he hadn't ranked first at the great competition of Shuiyu. Lin Feng had finished first. How strong was Lin Feng? Besides, why wasn't Lin Feng appearing at that moment? Lovesickness lovesickness punch, said Yu Menghe looking like an illusion in a dream. Her punches were bombarding the atmosphere, they gave people an impression of lovesickness, the surrounding people suddenly needed love. Those lovesickness punches even contained some intent and as they could make the warlord punches melt. Love could make aggressiveness melt. The warlord punches were getting weaker and then disappeared. Love had invaded the entire atmosphere. Humph. Duan Wudao groaned coldly and jumped forwards while shouting furiously, Warlord punch. Some rumbling sound spread in the air, terrifying punches invaded the atmosphere, residual energy turned into hurricanes that were killing people who were behind Yu Menghe. Duan Wudao didn't stop after his warlord punches, some sealed doors intent appeared and it seemed like it was going to seal Yu Menghe's body. Jade Sky Burial. Destruction, shouted Duan Wudao and a gigantic hand appeared. It was pitch black and was moving towards Yu Menghe at full speed, it seemed like that hand could bury her. Some rumbling sounds were spreading in the air. That kind of skill contained intent, it seemed like it was preventing Yu Menghe from moving and wanted to bury her. Yu Menghe could sense how terrifying that attack was. That chi was monstrous. Behind Yu Menghe, a silhouette slowly appeared as a terrifying intent appeared and broke Duan Wudao's punch attack which was oppressing Yu Menghe. Then Duan Wudao's punch suddenly disappeared. Duan Wudao's face became even angrier. Immediately after, a terrifying physical strength crashed onto Duan Wudao's body and projected him backwards. When Duan Wudao saw that person, he was astonished. Tian Qi layer, you're Lin Hai, said Duan Wudao coldly while looking at the man next to Yu Menghe. Indeed, replied Lin Hai indifferently. The crowd was astonished, it was Lin Hai, one of the 4 geniuses from the country 20 years ago. He had broken through to the Tian Qi layer. How amazing! Lin Hai, said a voice in the distance. In the past I had sealed your body and expelled you from the imperial city. I wouldn't have thought that you would break through to the Tian Qi layer, but even now I can still seal your body once again. In the distance, a silhouette appeared. That person was wearing a golden crown and golden clothes, that person wasn't the king though, it was Duan Renhuang. Duan Renhuang, just like in the past, you're as shameless as before. said Lin Hai coldly. Humph, said Duanren Huang. It took you more than 10 years to break the sealed doors and you just broke to the Tian Qi layer, nothing more. You came to my imperial palace to see the wedding. Last time I sealed your body, now I will kill you. Indeed, Duanren Huang had sealed Lin Hai's cultivation in the past. He had been unable to break free from the sealed doors for so many years, but in the end Lin Feng had slowly risen. He had practiced cultivation so hard, then Lin Feng had finished first at the great competition of Shuiyu. That had made Lin Hai feel so great. He was so proud of his son that his heart had enabled him to break free from the chains of the sealed doors, and then he had broken through to the Tian Qi layer. In a short time, he would also be able to break through to the Tian Qi layer. Duanren Huang, what about you? What makes you think you can criticize me? Asked Lin Hai coldly. He then continued slowly, back then, you, Meng He and Wu Qing and I were the 4 strongest cultivators of the country. We were also 4 best friends, like brothers. We were doing everything together. I still remember that day when we went to the 9-Dragon Mountain chain and killed some beasts and picked up some grass. You were like a brother, but then when you became stronger you started courting Meng He and wanted to kill us. Do you have a clear conscience? If you did have a clear conscience, you wouldn't be so weak now. Shut the hell up, shouted Duanren Huang furiously. His voice made the entire atmosphere shake. The crowd was surprised. The 4 of them used to be best friends. What had happened 20 years before hadn't been transmitted properly to the later generations and there were so many different rumors. Huh, you're still getting angry because of such things. We all forgot about what happened in the past. You're the only one who cannot get over it. Nobody would have thought that you would still think about it, said Lin Hai mockingly. Duanren Huang looked cold and glum. He slowly rose up in the air and glanced at the crowd from above. He looked emotionless. Lin Hai, prepare to die, said Duanren Huang while releasing some terrifying intent. His intent was also sealed door intent, but it was much stronger than that of Duan Wu Dao's. Of course, he had broken through to the Tian Qi layer. At that moment, the crowd was astonished and couldn't move. They had the impression that they couldn't breathe anymore. Duanren Huang then released the integrity of his sealed door energy. Lin Hai jumped forwards and rose up in the air while releasing a terrifying qi. 2 hurricanes collided and merged. Seal, shouted Duanren Huang furiously. A terrifying strength bombarded the atmosphere. Lin Hai's body was covered by it. The sealed door's intent surrounded his entire body. There was a huge difference between them. He rose up in the air and released some energies which moved towards Duanren Huang. Duanren Huang glanced at her and shouted coldly, in the past, you made a mistake and now you are as dull and stupid as before. You will die together now. A terrifying warlord Qi emerged in the air and a gigantic light bombarded them both. Both of them were projected backwards, they even collapsed on the ground. Both of them together couldn't rival with Duanren Huang. Crrr. A terrifying sword Qi invaded the atmosphere from a distance and moved towards Duanren Huang. A moment before it was extremely far away, but now it was extremely close. Die with them too, shouted Duanren Huang while bombarding the sword energy with a terrifying punch. In a flash, the sword Qi disappeared without leaving trace. The one who had used the sword was also punched and had crashed onto the ground next to Yu Meng He and Lin Hai. Cough cough. Lin Hai was coughing blood. He looked at the person who had just arrived, smiled wryly and said, you don't need to. We have been separated for so many years and now we are all reunited, said Zhu Guwuqing. He usually looked expressionless, but at that moment he had a smile on his face. Very good, I also gave you a chance in the past, Zhu Guwuqing. Now you are acting as my enemy. You will die with them, said Duanren Huang in a disdainful way. Back then, they used to be best friends and now Duanren Huang was fighting against them. Now, he wanted to kill the 3 of them. Lin Hai and the two others glanced at each other and smiled. Wu Qing, I got Meng He in the past, I hope you're not angry. I wouldn't have protected your son if I had blamed you, said Zhu Ge Wu Qing while shaking his head. Yu Meng He had a resplendent smile on her face, any man would have fallen in love with her. I wouldn't have thought that we would die in his hands though, said Yu Meng He, standing up. She turned her head, looked at Meng Qing and said, Meng Qing, you must leave. Everybody, you must escape from Shuiyu. Lin Hai and Zhu Ge Wu Qing looked at Yu Meng He, they understood what she meant. They were going to die. Even if they were going to die, they had to fight. They would die as heroes to keep their honor. Unfortunately, so many people were involved. Even Meng Qing and Lin Feng, all right, if you want to die, I will kill you, said Duan Ren Huang, releasing a terrifying deadly energy. He looked cold. His deadly energy was terrifying, the crowd couldn't breathe anymore. Would the problems which had started 20 years before between the four most outstanding people of Shuiyu stop now?